Chapter 1054. Reincarnation's Secret Realm. Everyone quietened down after hearing Gid's ear-piercing roar. They all heaved a sigh of relief when they heard Gid say that they were going to a mystic realm and that it was extremely safe. They were the absolute rulers of this place. Plus, there were humans inside, and the territory was huge. It wouldn't make them feel uncomfortable. Jita saw that the people around him had calmed down. Their adaptability was not bad. He admired Lord Devour's arrangement and the people he chose. It seemed that Lord Devour had spent a lot of effort on these elite seeds. But Jita pressed his hand down, drawing everyone's attention to him. He continued, "The reincarnation secret realm is not our final resting place. I can tell you clearly that our ultimate goal is to kill our way back to the divine world. Kill the Star Monarch and unify the divine world. Your commander, Venerable Mo Xiao Xiao, is the only soul cultivator who has reached the venerable realm. Our frigid night monarch is the first genius in the history of the divine world. He became a monarch after cultivating for less than 100 years. Jita, even though I'm not as talented as them, I'll still work hard." In Venerable Butterfly Dance, the legend of the soul-devouring city. When we've accumulated enough power, we'll take you back to the divine world, kill the Star Monarch, or chase him out of the divine world like a wild dog. At that time, you'll all become the rulers of the divine world. You'll be the ruler of a prefecture, or the monarch of a continent. Of course, the premise is, are you willing to fight with us? What responded to Jita was a deathly silence. Then, there was an earth-shattering roar. Yes. People always wanted to climb higher. The warriors of the divine world went against the heavens and changed their fates. Didn't they crazily cultivate to be above everyone else? To control great power and awe an entire region? The geniuses below were the geniuses of the entire soul devourer manner. Geniuses were more ambitious than ordinary people to rule the world. Most importantly, they had Lord Devour, Jita, and Frigid Night Monarch, Lord Mo Xiao Xiao, and countless great elders. Star Monarch. They more or less knew about him. The number one in the divine world had defeated South Mountain Monarch with one move. But the Star Monarch was also a human. If he could cultivate to such a high realm, why couldn't Lord Devour and the others? It should be known that Lord Devour had used several hundred years to reach level 9 from the peak of level 7. And Lord Mo Xiao Xiao had the supernatural abilities. Their idol, the legend of the God world, the number one genius in the history of the God world. They all knew that today's pathetic escape was so that they could return with their heads held high tomorrow. Once they had accumulated enough power, the entire God realm would tremble beneath their feet. Of course, Jita smiled faintly. He was very satisfied with the martialists and doyens below. Because of his words, their fighting spirit had soared. He decided to add fuel to the fire and shouted in a deep voice, "Not everyone is qualified to fight back with us in the future. Your strength is too low. Even if you were given the position of manor head, would you be able to sit firmly in it? Therefore, we will provide you with countless resources. The number one divine artifact below the God Emperor realm, the Illusory Palace. Anyone can use it. Countless profound diagrams, spirit fruits, and treasures can be given to you. As long as you are willing to work hard, you will be able to break through again and again. The lowest goal I'm giving you is to break through to the venerable realm. If you do not reach the strength of a venerable, all of you will die of old age in the reincarnation mystic realm. You are not qualified to follow us back to the God world. You are not qualified to enjoy the glorious moment when the entire God world looks up to us and trembles beneath our feet. The Frigid Night Sovereign could become a sovereign in 100 years, but we are giving you hundreds of thousands of years and countless treasures. Is it difficult for you to become a mere venerable? Tell me, do you have the confidence?" Yes. Another wave of earth-shattering roars sounded. The people below were like a pot of boiling oil. Everything was boiling. There were even some young martial artists who started to roar hysterically with malevolent looks on their faces. It was as though they were not roaming around, but snatching treasures and women Emperor Yi and Zhao Shanshan looked at each other and saw the passion in each other's eyes. The two of them looked at Jida, who was standing proudly in midair, and smiled knowingly. The worry they had for Emperor Yu also dissipated. The doyens of soul-devouring city also looked at each other and smiled. It was rumored that before Jida became the ethereal sovereign, he was the #1 god bandit group in the god world. The god bandits under him were the most fanatical in the god world. Wherever Jida pointed, the million god bandits under him would kill without any fear of death. This rumor seemed to be true. Didn't you see Jida's casual words tricking the geniuses and elites of the soul-devouring manor to the point that they wanted to fight with the Star Monarch? In a room on the 9th floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion, on the white jade bed, Xiaohei was naked and sleeping soundly. His face was full of satisfaction. Beside the bed, Li Shuai was half lying on the bed in her undergarments. Her eyes were slightly closed, and her face was flushed. It was obvious that she had just experienced a fierce battle. As for the main attacker, Lord Xiaohei had fought for too long, too intensely, and because of his body, he was so tired that he fainted. Li Shuai lay on the bed for a long time, waiting for the redness on her face and body to slowly fade. Then, she moved her eyelashes and opened her eyes. She gazed at Xiaohei, who was sleeping soundly. And after her divine sense detected that Xiaohei was completely asleep, 2 streams of clear tears suddenly fell silently from her eyes. After that, she suddenly pulled out a hand that was like a white lotus and forcefully covered her mouth. She desperately suppressed her body and didn't allow herself to cry out loud. 20 days! Xiaohei had accompanied her for a total of 20 days. Every day, he treated her extremely well and stuck to her like honey. What's more, his mouth was full of sweet nothings. It was as if they were newlyweds and extremely intimate. She, Li Shuai, was not a fool. How many transcendent-grade divine beasts in the god world could rely on their own cultivation to transform within 10,000 years? Not only was she not a fool, but she was also extremely intelligent. Recently, Lord Tianshi and the others didn't show up. Moreover, with Xiaohei's strange behavior and his blushing face, as Xiaohei's wife, how could she not find something? Several days ago, after Xiaohei had fallen asleep, she had checked his body. She easily found out that Xiaohei's bodily functions were declining, and his divine crystal had 3 cracks. Moreover, it was getting easier for him to fall asleep. During their wedding, Xiaohei had tormented her body for 3 days and 3 nights. After resting for 1 hour, he got up again. His charcoal black penis was as straight as a mountain. However, he had only done it for an hour before he fell into a deep slumber. She didn't know what had happened. She just knew that her man, her Lord Xiaohei, was going to leave her. She was smart. She knew that Lord Tianshi, Yi Qinghan, didn't show up these days because he wanted her to accompany Xiaohei to spend his last moments. Lord Tianshi treated Xiaohei like his own son. Yi Qinghan treated Xiaohei even better than Yi Sahan. They were like father and son. There was also the gay demoness Mo Xiao. Since so many peak experts couldn't save Xiaohei, a weak woman like her was even more helpless. Thus, she didn't go to Lord Tianshi, nor did she let Xiaohei know that she had found out the secret of his body. She happily accompanied Xiaohei every day. If Xiaohei needed anything, she would do her best to satisfy him, since her man didn't want her to be sad and wanted to spend his last moments with her. Was there any reason for her not to let him spend his last moments with her, even though this act was really hard? Chapter 1055. Li Shuai's beautiful oval face was completely wet with tears. She looked at Xiaohei's handsome face in a daze and didn't want to look away. After a while, she started to wipe her face slowly. She was afraid that Xiaohei would suddenly wake up and see her like this. However, just as she wiped half of her tears, her hands suddenly paused in midair and her eyes widened abruptly, because she saw a pair of black and shiny eyes staring straight at her. They were filled with guilt, but they were also filled with endless love. Li Shuai wanted to hide it and turn around immediately to continue pretending. However, When she saw Xiao Hei's eyes that could see through everything, she understood that her man was actually an extremely intelligent person. She could discover his secret, and he had discovered hers too. Their eyes intertwined and didn't separate for a long time. Xiao Hei didn't explain anything, and Li Shui pursed her lips and didn't speak. Both of them exchanged glances and understood each other's thoughts. Intelligent people often didn't need too many words. One glance was enough to understand. Shui, I'm sorry. I might not be able to wait for our child to be born. In the end, Little Black opened his mouth. His face was flushed, which made him look even more enchanting. Li Shui held back the tears in her eyes and said with a choked voice, I will raise the child well. I will tell them that his father is very handsome and great. Xiao Hei sat up leisurely and gently hugged the sobbing Li Shui. There was a trace of regret in his eyes as he said in a low voice, My mother was killed by Li Kong, so I asked Boss to kill Li Kong at all costs. I didn't expect Star Monarch to come out in the end. Boss and I couldn't escape death at first, but Annie taught me to awaken our soul-devouring beast's innate ability, soul-devouring transformation, so we escaped in the end. However, after using the soul-devouring transformation, my divine crystal will slowly crack. I think you must have sensed it. Annie said I can only live for a month, but I don't regret it. I just have some regrets that I can't wait for our child to be born. Even if I could take a look at him. Li Shui's crying got louder and louder. The tears and sadness that she had been suppressing for the past few days were all released at this moment. Although Xiao Hei was very naughty and liked to look at pretty girls' breasts and butts, she knew that Xiao Hei really loved her. Suddenly, a voice rang out in Xiao Hei's mind. Xiao Hei's body shook and his eyes lit up. The voice came from Yi Qinghan. It was firm. Yi Qinghan would never lie to Xiao Hei. He had complete trust in Yi Qinghan. He couldn't help but exclaim, Boss, what did you say? Xiao Hei, you're saved. Open the room's restrictions. I'll come in first. Yi Qinghan sent a soul message over. Xiao Hei hurriedly got up and realized that he wasn't wearing any clothes. Li Shui was also only wearing her underwear. Xiao Hei hurriedly picked up the robe on the big bed and put on. Seeing Xiao Hei's expression, Li Shui also hurriedly wiped her tears. She blushed and hurriedly put on her clothes like Xiao Hei. Yi Qinghan walked into the room. Seeing Xiao Hei's shining eyes and Li Shui's blushing face, he easily knew what they had just done. He smiled faintly and said, Emo Xiao Xiao, and Lord found a way to save Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei, you definitely won't die. Believe me. Xiao Hei's eyes lit up even more. Li Shui looked at Yi Qinghan in disbelief and started to cry silently again. Although Yi Qinghan always liked to joke, he usually didn't joke about serious matters. Xiao Hei and Li Shui looked at each other and hugged each other tightly. Yi Qinghan looked at the two's joyful expressions, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had never lied to Xiao Hei before, but this time, he was deceived. Mo Xiaoxiao's method was extremely risky. Forget about absolutely guaranteeing resurrection of Xiao Hei. In the end, even if there was a 30 to 40% chance of resurrection, it would be good. Xiao Hei, don't worry. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will let you live. Even if I'm trapped, even if I have to pierce through the sky, even if I have to kill a god emperor, I will definitely find a way to do it. Definitely. Yi Qinghan silently swore and muttered. Then, he waved at Xiao Hei and said, Let's talk outside. Although Xiao Hei, you will survive in the end, the method is extremely complicated. You must be mentally prepared. Xiao Hei and Li Shui hurriedly followed Yi Qinghan out and sat down in the small hall. Yi Qinghan was silent for a while before he said, Xiao Hei, you should understand your own situation. After you use the soul-devouring transformation, your body's life force will start to wither and the god world will start to crack. When you become a moon queen, the divine crystal will completely shatter. Therefore, this body of yours will be crippled and your soul-devouring beast body will also be destroyed. You must be mentally prepared. The soul-devouring beast's body will be destroyed? Then won't I be unable to help you in the future? Xiao Hei scratched his head helplessly. If the soul-devouring beast's body was useless, then he would be completely useless. However, Li Shui's face was filled with worry and confusion. If the divine crystal was destroyed, would Xiao He still be able to survive? However, when she thought about Yi Qinghan and Lord Devour's great abilities, Li Shui did not dare to ask. She obediently sat beside Xiao He and anxiously grabbed his hand. Yi Qinghan flipped his hand, and the slaughter god blade appeared in his hand. He poured in his godly power, and a shadow emerged from the slaughter god blade. Slowly, it condensed into the dog's flattering face. He pointed at the dog and said, "Xiao He, when the time comes, your aunt will extract your soul and use her ability to let you devour this spirit. This spirit is a very mystical life form, but if you devour it, your soul can only temporarily reside in the slaughter god blade. After that, we will find a suitable body for you to possess and revive. However, you might be able to maintain your soul state for a very long time. This is the only way." Xiao He and Li Shui sighed. However, both of them knew that being able to revive was already not bad. After all, Lord Devour and Yi Qinghan were only grade 9 experts. They were not the legendary god emperors who were invincible. Suddenly, Xiao He raised his eyebrows and asked in a serious tone, "Boss, I want to ask you something. If my soul devours this spirit and resides in the slaughter god blade, will I lose my memory? If I lose my memory and can't remember the original things, I would rather not be revived." "Probably not." Yi Qinghan shook his head and said with certainty, "Your aunt has already made arrangements. With your aunt's restriction skills and Mo Xiao soul attainments, they will definitely not let such a situation happen to you." "That's good. That's good." Xiao He grinned and was extremely happy. He turned to look at Li Shui and said, "As long as I can see my child being born, I will be satisfied. Even if I have to live in the form of a soul for the rest of my life, I will still be happy to see all of you." Li Shui hurriedly covered Little Black's mouth with a reproachful look. She frowned and said, "You're not allowed to say such inauspicious words. Little Black, you will definitely be resurrected. I will wait for you. When the time comes, the child and I will also be waiting for you, waiting for your return." "Ha ha!" Yi Qinghan stood up and laughed. "Xiao He, you must believe in your boss. Boss can turn another piece of trash from the Yi family into a grade 9 monarch within 100 years. Moreover, this dangerous situation did not take my life. What else in this world can stop me? Believe me, you will definitely live well. I will also bring all of you back to the divine world to take revenge for you and your father. Prepare yourselves. The ceremony will probably start in 3 to 5 days." Chapter 1056. Yi Qinghan left Xiao He's place and sent a message to Lord Devour. Eventually, they arrived at a small side hall. Lord Devour was sitting alone, drinking tea. The enchantress, Mo Xiao, and Xiao Jide were nowhere to be seen. Perhaps they were busy with the things that Lord Devour had arranged. Lord Devour glanced at Yi Qinghan, asking him to sit opposite him. Without saying anything, he waved his hand. All of a sudden, the surrounding walls, ground, and roof became transparent. Lord Devour had asked the enchantress to simulate the scenery outside. Although Yi Qinghan knew that they were in the turbulent space basin, he couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, the surrounding walls were transparent, as if they were standing proudly in the void. It was really shocking. For example, if you sat on the ground and looked up at the starry sky, you wouldn't feel anything special. But if you stood in the void and looked at the stars in the sky, you would feel that it was different. It was vast and boundless. Although Yi Qinghan was strong, at this moment, he felt so small and humble. "Look behind you. That's the divine world." Lord Devour continued to hold his teacup, drinking tea. He said faintly, "This white air current is the origin energy. Every plane is covered by the origin energy. Look at the distance. There are countless small glowing objects like stars. Those are material planes, and the fire dragon plane is in that direction." "The origin energy? Fire dragon plane?" Yi Qinghan sighed again. A peak venerable only had the origin energy of a fist. Every single plane was enveloped by the power of origin, not to mention the plane of the god world. Even the amount of power of origin outside the material plane was frightening. The fire dragon plane was in that direction. Yi Qinghan took a closer look and discovered that there were countless material planes surrounding the divine world. They were as numerous as the stars in the sky, and the flame dragon plane seemed to be one of the bigger ones. Right? All of a sudden, Yi Qinghan remembered something. He turned to ask Lord Devour, "Will the fire dragon plane be okay?" If the King of Stars were to descend upon the fire dragon dimension in a fit of rage, he could easily destroy the fire dragon dimension. Humph! He can't destroy it. Lord Devour sneered and said, "The monarch has a tremendous divine power. The material plane space isn't stable. Once a level 9 expert with will gets in there, he will be smashed directly. At that time, the laws of heaven and earth will directly kill him." Yi Qinghan frowned and said doubtfully, "That's not right. My lord, it's fine for me to go back. You've been back too. We're different. We were all born in the flame dragon plane. Our souls are compatible with the space power of the plane. Of course, we won't be affected. Do you remember the divine master too? His lords could suppress the strength of the heavenly god martial artists on the mainland, but it could not suppress the martial artists of the immortal world. It was because the native heavenly god martial artists were compatible with the power of space that they were suppressed. As for, did Lord of Stars mainly send the Venerable One? I'll kill them all." Lord Devour sneered and said faintly, "Didn't you ask me about the identity of the rabbit in the dark castle? That's my real body. My real body is the divine beast you too. When I first took human form, the Soul Emperor used a treasure to help me create an avatar. My clone can't cultivate, so it has the same strength as my real body. So, you don't need to worry about the flame dragon plane. With my real body here, no one can destroy the flame dragon continent. Originally, I wanted to bring all of you to the flame dragon plane. But considering that the place is small and that Jida can't enter, and that your cultivation speed in the material plane will be slow, I chose to go to the reincarnation secret land." Yi Qinghan's eyes widened in shock. That rabbit was Lord Devour's real body? No wonder the rabbit killed so many experts that Li Kong had sent there so easily. It was Lord Devour's real body. No wonder he hadn't seen this rabbit before. When Lord Devour went to the immortal world, this rabbit suddenly appeared. No wonder. With Lord Devour's real body and the fact that monarchs couldn't enter, Yi Qinghan was completely relieved. Also, with the Soul Emperor Pavilion, he could travel through the space turbulence at any time. In the future, he could also bring the immortal experts and disciples with potential to the reincarnation secret land. Now that the rear was completely safe, he could give it his all. Yi Qinghan looked at the material planes outside in a daze. After thinking for a while, Yi Qinghan turned to look at Lord Devour and said, "Lord, the arrangements are almost done, right? After Xiao Hei's soul enters the slaughter god blade, will he lose his memory? Also, how is he going to take over the body in the future? Do you have any secret techniques for this?" Lord Devour said faintly, "He shouldn't lose his memory. Mo Xiao Xiao and the Enchantress are preparing to leave in 2 to 3 days. This shouldn't be too difficult. As for taking over the body, to be honest, currently, I have no idea." "No idea?" Yi Qinghan frowned and asked, "That's not right. Can't the Star Monarch take over the body easily? Is it very difficult?" In the immortal world, besides Shinta Xiong, I haven't heard of anyone who knows the secret technique of taking over the body. Jito also hasn't heard of it. Even Mo Xiao Xiao doesn't know it. This is an ancient secret technique that is extremely complicated. Even if Mo Xiao Xiao were to study it, it would be extremely difficult. So, Lil Han, the only thing we can do now is to cultivate continuously and become stronger. When we are strong enough, we will kill our way back, capture and kill Shintu Xiong, and force him to tell us how to take over the body. To be honest, no matter how hard Jida and I cultivate, the space for improvement is too small. So, we can only place our hopes on you. You have a long way to go. And Yi Qinghan nodded and did not speak anymore. He looked at the countless material planes in the distance the space knife currents, and the space vortexes. His gaze became more and more resolute. Grade 9 Supreme Martial Artist would be his life's highest goal. 3 days later, inside the largest hall of the 9th floor, the originally spacious hall had all the furnishings moved away. A complicated sacrificial altar appeared in the middle of the hall. Lord Devour, the Enchantress, Mo Xiao Xiao, Jida, and Yi Qinghan sat around the sacrificial altar. Xiao He sat alone in the middle of the sacrificial altar. Behind Lord Devour and Yi Qinghan stood a group of people. Li Shui was surrounded by fireworks. Yin Ling, Yu Qingsheng, and a group of women. Everyone was here. All of them looked solemnly at Xiao He, who was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the sacrificial altar. Xiao He looked relaxed. Li Shui, who was in the middle of the group, also had a smile on her face. They thought that Xiao He would definitely die. Now that there was a chance for him to come back to life, the two of them were already very happy. Although Yi Qinghan and everyone else had told them that Xiao He would exist as a soul for a long time. But as long as Xiao He could come back to life, it was fine. As long as there was hope, it was worth the long wait. "Let's begin," Lord Devour said calmly. Divine power burst out from his hand and hit the sacrificial altar. The entire sacrificial altar suddenly emitted a holy pure white light. Lord Devour shouted, "Little Han, cancel the soul contract with Xiao He." Chapter 1057. Yi Qinghan looked at Xiao He, exhaling deeply. Eventually, he gritted his teeth and cut off the soul connection with Xiao He. It wasn't the usual separation, but it was cut off forever. At the moment their souls were cut off, Yi Qinghan and Xiao He shivered at the same time. Yi Qinghan felt like something was missing in his body. He felt empty and uncomfortable. Xiao He's face reddened even more. His eyes were misty, as if his soul was cut in half. Lord Devour was emotionless as he continued to shout, "Little Han, release Netherworld." Yi Qinghan was holding the Slaughter God's saber in his hand. His god power surged, and the ghost appeared in the sacrificial altar, still wearing a flattering face. However, under this sacred light, the ghost felt a little uncomfortable. However, under Yi Qinghan's thought, the ghost didn't dare to move, hovering in the air above the sacrificial altar. Swoosh! Mo Xiao Xiao's two beautiful eyes shot out streaks of white lightning, continuously striking the specter's body. Every attack caused the specter's body to tremble. Yi Qinghan used his thought to control Netherworld, not letting the ghost move. However, the ghost's face became paler, and its body shivered. After a while, when the ghost was almost transparent, and its face didn't have any flattering smile anymore, Lord Devour shouted, "Xiao He, follow the method I've taught you. Get your soul out of your body and enter this ghost. Swallow his consciousness. Hurry." Xiao He looked at Li Shui. They didn't talk, just nodded. Then, Xiao He looked at Yi Qinghan and then at Lord Devour. Then he closed his eyes resolutely, and his body burned with a raging flame. The flame grew bigger, and Xiao He's body was swallowed. Li Shui's smile was gone, but she didn't cry. She just pursed her lips and rubbed her belly. Deep in her eyes, there was a blood-soaked sorrow. Fireworks, Yi Qingyu, and the others next to her started to cry. Lord Devour didn't show any emotion, but his eyes were closed. Yi Qinghan didn't show any emotion, but the murderous aura in his eyes soared as if he could swallow people. Yao Ji and Kid couldn't bear it. Mo Xiao Xiao's beautiful eyes were so bright that they couldn't see what she was thinking. Boom. Not long after that, Xiao He's body was burned into ashes in the flame. Then, a translucent mass of air appeared in the air. At this moment, Lord Devour opened his eyes. His hands moved like lightning, shooting the god power unceasingly on the altar. The holy white halo on the altar became more dazzling, the white lightning in Mo Xiao Xiao's eyes. At the same time, the translucent mass of air that came out from Xiao He's body rushed towards the ghost. Finally, the translucent mass of air and the ghost fused together. Lord Devour's eyes widened, and he shouted, "Little Han, recall the ghost. Pay attention to the situation inside the slaughter god saber." Yi Ching Han quickly moved his mind, and the dying ghost and Xiao Hei's soul, which had been attacked by Mo Xiao Xiao, were absorbed into the slaughter god's saber. Yi Ching Han held the saber with both hands, closed his eyes, and sat down cross-legged. His divine sense immediately entered the saber, and he focused on observing the situation inside. The light on the altar gradually dimmed. Everyone in the hall stared at Yi Ching Han, but they didn't dare to use their divine sense to check the situation inside the slaughter god saber. Although Lord Devour and Mo Xiao Xiao didn't look worried, they were extremely anxious. They had done all the necessary preparations, and now it was time to see the final outcome. If Little Black couldn't devour the dog and was devoured by the dog instead, then Little Black's soul would completely disappear. His soul would scatter and disappear from this world forever. Yi Ching Han was the most nervous. Although Lord Devour and Mo Xiao Xiao had discussed for a long time and came up with all kinds of plans, this concerned Xiao Hei's soul. How could Yi Ching Han not be nervous? The divine sense of his two souls separated to check on Xiao Hei's soul and the ghost. After checking, Yi Ching Han heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Hei's soul had been strengthened by the slow burning of the divine crystal and the altar. As for the ghost, Mo Xiao Xiao kept attacking it with her soul skills, and it became extremely weak. The moment Xiao Hei's soul entered, it pounced on the ghost like a ferocious tiger. However, Xiao Hei's soul was too small, and Netherworld's soul was too big. As the saying goes, a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. Xiao Hei's soul was extremely strenuous. Although it was strenuous, Xiao Hei's soul was slowly devouring the ghost's body. Yi Ching Han kept controlling the ghost to not resist. At the same time, he used his divine sense to send a message to encourage Xiao Hei's soul. Slowly, Little Black's soul grew stronger and stronger. The original ratio of Spectre to Little Black's soul was 9-1, but in such a short period of time, it had become 8-2. However, at this moment, the ghost actually started to resist Yi Ching Han's orders. Maybe it was because of its simple intelligence, but it sensed a fatal danger and started to resist. What a bastard! Yi Ching Han cursed in his heart. There was no other way. He could only use the extreme method. He quietly activated the Soul Exterminator and started to attack the ghost carefully. His powerful divine sense turned into millions of golden soul threads and started to attack the ghost. However, his control wasn't very accurate. Xiao Hei's soul and the ghost got entangled, and the countless golden soul threads actually spread into Xiao Hei's soul. The ghost and Xiao Hei's souls trembled at the same time and became weak at the same time. Yi Ching Han sighed helplessly. To kill 3,000 enemies, one had to suffer 800 losses. This was something that could not be helped. Fortunately, the ghost's injuries were more severe. Xiao Hei's soul started to attack again after a while. When the ghost recovered and started to devour him again, Yi Ching Han had no choice but to release the Soul Exterminator again. Half a day had passed. Yi Ching Han had already released the Soul Exterminator more than 10 times. Yu Ming's and Xiao Hei's souls had been injured countless times. The two masses of qi had already shrunk by half. Another 2 hours had passed. Yi Ching Han's body finally trembled. This was because Xiao Hei's soul had completely devoured the ghost. The mass of qi in the slaughter god's saber slowly wriggled and finally turned into a small beast that looked exactly like Xiao Hei. That horn and those lively eyes were exactly the same as Xiao Hei's. "Boss, my soul is very weak. I need to sleep." When a consciousness was transmitted from Xiao Hei's soul to Yi Ching Han's divine sense, Yi Ching Han's entire body started to tremble. Yi Ching Han's divine sense scanned the slaughter god blade for a long time. After confirming that there were no accidents, he slowly withdrew his divine sense. He opened his eyes tiredly, but his eyes were filled with ecstasy. Looking at the countless faces of Zhang Shi, Yi Ching Han laughed heartily and nodded his head. Little Black succeeded. He has successfully devoured the ghost and even transmitted a message to me to confirm it. However, he is too weak now and has already fallen into a deep sleep. Shui, go back and rest first. If Xiaohei wakes up, I will inform you immediately. Oh, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Li Shui even collapsed in a fireworks embrace. Yi Qinghan and Lord Devour looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. The first important step was a success. The next step was to kill a large number of demonic creatures to stabilize Xiaohei's soul. As long as Little Black's soul stabilized, everyone could cultivate with peace of mind. When someone broke through to the 9th grade Supreme Martial Artist level one day, when someone broke through to grade 9 Supreme Martial Artist, it would be time for them to kill their way back to the divine world. Chapter 1058. Amidst the vast space turbulence, a 9-story pagoda glowing with golden light was like a shooting star as it flew past. The tip of the pagoda was in front, and the base was behind it. The tip of the pagoda was very sharp, just like a sharp awl that pierced through the void. The golden light around the pagoda was so fast that it ignited the air and created sparks. At this moment, the pagoda was flying towards a huge plane in front of it. This plane was completely enveloped by the origin energy, and it looked like it was wrapped up by clouds. The geographical location of this plane was very strange because it was surrounded by 4 huge space vortexes. The space vortex's suction force was extremely strong. Even if a strong warrior or a warrior who had comprehended some special laws and could travel in the space turbulence discovered this plane, they would still hide far away. The power of the space vortexes was so strong that it was not a joke to be sucked in. It was possible that they would be stuck in there for the rest of their lives. However, at this moment, the 9-story pagoda did not have any scruples. It was almost at the edge of the 2 vortexes as it flew in at a high speed. The flight route was very ingenious. It happened to be in between the 2 vortexes. The suction force on both sides was balanced, and it would not be sucked into either vortex. It was obvious that this was not the first or second time. After a few days, the pagoda successfully passed through the vortexes and reached the cloud-like origin energy. After flying for another day outside the origin energy, it suddenly stopped at a place. Then, the pagoda started to spin crazily. It was like a sharp drill that penetrated the clouds and flew inside. My lord, you said that this is the origin energy? Isn't the origin energy indestructible? How could such a tough divine item be broken so easily? In the 9th floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion, Yi Qinghan looked at this magical scene and was extremely shocked. At the same time, he asked Lord Devour, who was sitting on the main seat. The Yao Ji smiled faintly and did not speak. Jida and Mo Xiao Xiao also looked at Lord Devour in confusion. Lord Devour put down the cup of tea, and his eyes were peaceful. Black's condition had temporarily stabilized, and he had already woken up once. Yi Qinghan had even asked him to release the Slaughter God Blade and condense it once, which made everyone relax. After a few months, Xiaohei's condition had not changed. Lord Devour was in a good mood, and his face was no longer so cold. At this moment, he patiently explained to Yi Qinghan, "It is not broken. Don't you see that the Soul Emperor Pavilion is spinning crazily? In fact, when a monarch comes out of the space turbulence from the space crack, it cannot break. Nothing could break through the power of the origin. The Soul Emperor Pavilion was able to easily penetrate source energy. This was one of the genius designs of the Soul Emperor Pavilion. According to what the Soul Emperor said, he was referring to the principles of this space vortex. The source strength that protected the plane revolved along with it. And the Soul Emperor Pavilion was like a divine armor that pierced through the source strength like a mountain-piercing armor. In order to build the Soul Emperor Pavilion, the Soul Emperor, who was at the peak of the 7th grade, had dared to sneak into the space turbulence through the space crack. He had almost died several times. This Soul Emperor Pavilion is actually the heaven-defying treasure that the Soul Emperor used to suppress the Venerables. The Soul Emperor Pavilion has many magical abilities. In the future, you can let the Yao Ji experience it. Yi Qinghan's heart chilled, but he wasn't too surprised. Ever since he learned that the Soul Emperor Pavilion could recklessly fly through the turbulent flows of space, He had already guessed that this was the Soul Emperor's heaven-defying supreme treasure. In his heart, he was full of admiration for this genius who came from Earth. Could this amazing person have been in the country's high-end scientific research department on Earth? However, Yi Qinghan did not lament for long. The Soul Emperor Pavilion had penetrated the space turbulence and entered the void called the reincarnation mystic realm. Yi Qinghan's eyes swept downwards. The Yao Ji and Lord Devour had been here before, so they did not care. Kidmore Xiao Xiao also looked around curiously. The reincarnation mystic realm was very big. At least one could not see the edge. There were 3 continents with an inner sea in the center. The outside was surrounded by seawater, and there were countless islands. What shocked Yi Qinghan and Kidmore Xiao Xiao was that the seawater outside was not blue, nor was it red like the Star Sea. It was brown, and the water of the inner sea was actually purple. Fortunately, the trees and grass here were still green, so it was not strange. However, the trees and grass on the 3 continents were too thick. From afar, it was like looking at a brown picture with 3 green modules and a purple module in the center. The colors were so bright that it was hard to forget. The Soul Emperor Pavilion slowed down, but it was still faster than the Venerable's teleportation. They flew toward the inner sea in the center. After a while, Yi Qinghan and Kidmore could vaguely see a big island in the center of the inner sea, which was twice as big as the Peach Blossom Island. After a while, the Soul Emperor Pavilion landed on the flat grassland of the big island. There was no loud explosion, and the entire island did not shake. They just landed quietly. Let's go and see our temporary home. Lord Devour put down the teacup and stood up. The Yao Ji smiled and controlled the barrier. The 5 of them flashed and appeared above the island. Li Shirshir greets the 2 ants and the lords. As soon as Yi Qinghan appeared in midair, he saw rows of people and strange creatures kneeling neatly on the grassland below. The beautiful woman in a yellow dress was standing in front. She slightly bent her body, curiously assessing Yi Qinghan and Kidmore Xiao Xiao behind Lord Devour. Yeah, sure, you've worked hard all these years. Lord Devour revealed a loving expression. He then glanced at the people behind the yellow-robed woman and sighed. Aunt, you've worked hard. Why aren't you bowing? The yellow-robed woman nodded obediently, then coldly tilted her head. The people behind her immediately panicked and shouted in unison, "Greetings, lords!" Yi Qinghan curiously assessed the people behind Li Shirshir. The people here were similar to the people in the divine world, but they were generally taller. The female warriors were also tall and strong, and their bodies were incomparably hot. What was worth noting was that there were some beastmen. In front of them was a woman with a snake's lower body and a half-naked upper body. However, her voluptuous breasts were covered by a red veil. She was the most eye-catching. However, the people behind Li Shirshir were all at the God Emperor realm, and only Li Shirshir was at the Venerable realm. Yi Qinghan did not care about it, and he was even less interested in that half-human, half-snake woman. Instead, he spread out his divine consciousness to check the entire Samsara secret land. After a while, he found many interesting things. In these 3 continents, about half of them were humans and the rest were beastmen, and other races that he had never seen before. There were many strange species that didn't exist in the divine world. Although there were no demonic beasts here, they were similar to the demonic beasts in the Fire Dragon continent. However, their strength was only at the God King realm, which Yi Qinghan ignored. The scenery in the Samsara plain was not bad, and the strange scenery was breathtaking. Although the heaven and earth essence energy here wasn't as good as the divine world, it wasn't bad either. After investigating the area, Yi Qinghan discovered that there weren't any strong monsters or warriors in this plane. Only then did he feel completely at ease. This reincarnation secret realm could be considered a paradise. It was not bad to use it as a temporary residence. While Yi Qinghan's group was exploring the Samsara continent, the warriors of the Samsara continent were also attracted by the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Many experts of the Samsara continent were also curious and quietly heading over to investigate. But when their divine consciousness swept over, they were all scared out of their wits. because they found that the strongest warriors of the Samsara continent, the high and mighty figures, the rulers who controlled the lives and deaths of billions of warriors on the continent, were all kneeling on the ground like dogs. Chapter 1059. After fireworks and moon-alluring cities, Yi Siqian and Emperor Hani were teleported out. They were also curious and excited. They released their soul consciousness to check the situation in the reincarnation secret land, which piqued their interest. Even Li Shuier, whose face was slightly pale, was temporarily suppressing the sorrow in her heart by this strange foreign scenery, quietly sizing it up. Lord Devour didn't talk much. He didn't introduce Yi Qinghan's group to Li Shishir and the rulers of the reincarnation secret land. He just nodded to Li Shishir. With her company, he brought Yi Qinghan's group to a massive building complex on the island. On the way, Li Shishir introduced the situation of the reincarnation secret land to them. This island was called the Reincarnation Island, and the inner sea was called the Reincarnation Sea. The three continents outside were called the Luan Sky Continent, the Luan Earth Continent, and the Luan Man Continent. The outer sea was called the Reincarnation Sea. The name was very unsophisticated and even strange. However, Lord Devour had told Yi Qinghan that it was the Soul Emperor who had named it. The Reincarnation Island had only one building complex. It wasn't a palace, but a bamboo building. Li Shishir said that she lived on the island alone with hundreds of maids. As for the rulers of the Reincarnation Secret Land, they didn't have the right to live on the Reincarnation Island. There were many buildings on the island. Thus, it was easy for Yi Qinghan's group to settle down. Each of the senior elders had their own courtyard. Since Yi Qinghan had many wives, the biggest courtyard was given to him. Fireworks had asked Li Shuier to stay with her. The elites of the soul-devouring manor in the first level of the Soul Emperor Pavilion didn't have the right to live on the island. Under Lord Devour's order, and senior elder of the soul-devouring city led them to the other continents to settle down. In the biggest building on the island, Lord Devour's group of 5, along with Li Shishir, were sitting and drinking the strange, fragrant tea on the island. They were listening to Li Shishir talking about the situation in the Reincarnation Secret Land. When the people in the Reincarnation Secret Land reach the God Emperor realm, they will die mysteriously after 10,000 years. So strange? That's not right. Li Shishir, you're already a martial venerable. You've been in the Reincarnation Mystic realm for more than 10,000 years, right? How did you? Before Li Shishir could finish speaking, Yi Qinghan suddenly interrupted. Both Jida and Mo Xiao were astonished. Cultivators at their level did not believe in things like fate and curses. The laws of heaven and earth would not kill life for no reason. A gleam of surprise crossed Li Shishir's eyes. She turned to Lord Devour and found that she didn't mind Yi Qinghan's rudeness. In addition, Yi Qinghan had a group of beautiful wives and concubines. Even Yao Ji was living with her. This made Li Shishir even more confused about Yi Qinghan's identity. On the surface, he was at the God Emperor realm. Although his soul had reached the God Emperor realm, he was the weakest in this group. Why did Mo Xiao and the other level 9 expert treat him so politely? Seeing that Lord Devour didn't want to explain, Li Shishir could only smile faintly. That year, the Soul Emperor named this place the Reincarnation Secret Land because this place has a reincarnation fate. When a warrior reaches the God Emperor realm, he will die mysteriously within 10,000 years. Outsiders like us aren't affected by this fate. I've lived here for 300,000 years. You guys don't need to worry. Ha, little Han, it's true. That year, the Soul Emperor and Yao Ji had investigated for a long time, but we couldn't solve this riddle. If you're interested, you can check it out later. Lord Devour opened his mouth to confirm this strange fact. Jida and Mo Xiao's eyes brightened. This strange thing didn't conform to the principles of the principle of heaven and earth. If they could solve it, perhaps they could comprehend something which would be beneficial to their cultivation. Yi Qinghan forced a smile. My lord, I don't have time to care about this. If Xiaohei's soul isn't stabilized, I won't have the mood to cultivate. When should we go to hunt devils? Lord Devour waved his hand and said faintly, don't panic. Let Shuei and the others adapt for a while. After 1 year, We'll go to the small plains near the demon world to check the situation. Then we'll discuss the details. How's Xiao Hei's soul now? It's stable now. However, his energy is disappearing. Without energy to replenish it, Xiao Hei's soul will become weaker and weaker. At this speed, Xiao Hei's soul will vanish completely in 100 years if he doesn't have energy to replenish it. Yi Qinghan said with a heavy heart. When he was devouring, Xiao Hei's soul had been destroyed, which made him so worried. 100 years. Lord Devour's face darkened. Eventually he nodded. You should go back and rest. We'll depart in 3 months. You, Jita, and I will leave. Xiao, you stay here. Your soul technique doesn't work on the demon world's creatures. You should continue to cultivate. Also, take care of the elites. All right, your soul is strong. You can comprehend the secret of the reincarnation's secret domain. Perhaps it will be beneficial to your cultivation. Yi Qinghan nodded his head silently and left directly. Lord Devour waved his hand faintly, taking Mo Xiao and teleporting away. Jita looked at Li Shishir with interest. This elegant lady was to his liking. However, considering her relationship with Lord Devour, he couldn't do anything to her. He smiled and left. Li Shishir and Jita were left alone. Li Shishir asked skeptically, Aunt Ji, who is that young man? What's his relationship with you? It's him. Jita saw the doubt in Li Shishir's eyes. She stayed behind to answer her question. Li Shishir was a lady from the divine world. The Soul Emperor had saved her and left her with Lord Devour and Jita. Hence, she had always called Lord Devour and Aunt Jita. Li Shishir was a good girl. Her cultivation speed was fast. When the Soul Emperor reached the reincarnation's secret domain, she broke through to the venerable realm. At that time, the Soul Emperor left her here to help guard the base. Jita rubbed Li Shishir's head lovingly. She smiled and said, He's a magical man, the #1 genius in the divine world. He's from the Fire Dragon Plain, the hometown of the Soul Emperor and Diawu. He's the eldest of the Soul Emperor's sons. He's the successor of the Soul Emperor. He broke the restriction of the Sealed God Valley. He comprehended the eternal mystery of space, which no one in the divine world has successfully comprehended in billions of years. He's the only person in the divine world who can use the supreme, slaughtering god blade without dying. After cultivating for 100 years, his overall strength has reached the 9th grade. Of course, he's also my man. His name is Yi Qinghan. In the divine world, he's called the Frigid Knight's Sovereign. 9th grade. Li Shishir opened her mouth in shock. She looked in the direction that Yi Qinghan had left in disbelief. No wonder this person looked like he only had the strength of a god emperor. He could actually sit on the same level as Lord Devour and the Kid Monarch. No wonder he could win the hearts of so many peerless women. Any one of the titles that Jita mentioned could shake the world. It was hard to imagine that so many halos appeared on one person's head. Moreover, he was someone who had ascended from a material plane. Li Shishir looked at the tenderness in Jita's eyes. She couldn't help but feel awkward. She had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. She actually had to call a young man who had cultivated for less than 1,000 years uncle. Chapter 1060. Qinghan, how long will you be gone this time? In Yi Qinghan's loft, a group of people was sitting in the hall, except Yao Ji. When Yi Qinghan said that he would leave after 3 months, everyone frowned slightly. Yu Qingqing knew that this question was a little redundant, but she still asked it in the end. Yi Qinghan didn't conceal anything about this operation. He had told them earlier that he was going to hunt the demonic creatures in the low-level planes. It wouldn't be dangerous, but it would take a long time. Because to stabilize Xiao Hei's soul completely, he needed a massive amount of original qi of life. Actually, Yi Qinghan didn't know how much he needed. The Netherworld dog was evolving for the first time. Yi Qinghan estimated that the Netherworld dog had slaughtered tens of millions of demonic demon creatures to produce such a strange thing. After that, Yi Qinghan thought that the Netherworld dog would quickly evolve for the second time. However, he did not expect that after a few months of slaughtering, the Netherworld dog had probably devoured at least 1/10 of the low-ranked demonic demon creatures in the Starry Sea. However, it didn't show any sign of evolution. Thus, Yi Qinghan guessed that if he wanted to form Xiao Hei's soul, he wouldn't need to worry about losing energy. He didn't need to swallow the original qi of the demonic creatures to survive forever. Thus, he had to make Xiao Hei's soul evolve. How many demonic beasts would be needed, or whether they could evolve, were all unknown. Thus, Yi Qinghan didn't know how long it would take, or if he could do it. Lord Devour knew that there were only two places with demonic creatures. One was a material plane near the divine world. After a long time of the demonic aura, it had become a small demon world. With 10 devil monarchs, it was the springboard for the demon world to attack the divine world. Of course, Yi Qinghan didn't dare to go there. The other place was the 9 nether demon world. Although the fiend world was 10 times larger than the immortal world, it was also much more dangerous. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one would dare to kill their way in. Thus, Xiao Hei needed a lot of demon world creatures, which would be the biggest headache for Yi Qinghan and Lord Devour. It was also something that had to be done, something that was extremely urgent. As for working hard in cultivation, comprehending laws, and breaking through to rank 9 utmost exalted, that was an incomparably long process. The path of cultivation could not be rushed. If everyone didn't have such a fate, they could only die of old age in the secret realm of reincarnation or the fire dragon continent. The lifespan of a rank 9 was infinitely long, but it did not mean that one could live forever and never die. Level 9 was only the pinnacle of martial artists, not the legendary omnipotent divine Emperor Supreme who existed with heaven and earth. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment. Looking at the countless faces of Zhangxi, he smiled faintly and said, "This time, I will be gone for a very long time. The demonic plane is too far away. It might take decades or even centuries to go back and forth. Moreover, we need to explore the surroundings and slowly hunt. Of course, I will occasionally come back to stay for a while. This secret realm of reincarnation is very safe. You can rest assured and stay here. President Mo Xiao lives here. You can look for her if you need anything. Don't worry too much. I won't risk my life too much. If I really can't kill my way back to the divine world, I will stay in this secret realm of reincarnation forever, or go back to the fire dragon continent to retire." The ladies looked at Yi Qinghan, who was smiling warmly, and nodded. Of course, there were also some who saw some other things, such as the wise Yu Qingsheng, the cold night enchantress, and the intelligent fireworks. A trace of bitterness flashed in their eyes. They were very clear that with Yi Qinghan's personality, things would not be as easy as he said. They were the only ones who understood their men. He would not stop until he reached his goal. Even if he broke the wall, he would not turn back. However, they were not prepared to say anything, nor were they prepared to persuade him. Wasn't this Yi Qinghan the Yi Qinghan that they liked? If he changed, he would not be Yi Qinghan anymore. Sahan, Peach Blossom, glamorous enchantress. This time, enchantress will make it leave the Soul Emperor Pavilion. When that time comes, if you want to cultivate, go into seclusion in the Dream Palace. Although cultivation is dependent on talent and opportunities, personal effort is also indispensable. Sahan, don't interfere with the matters of this secret realm of reincarnation. There is no point in meddling in such a small place. Cultivate well. If it is possible in the future, when we kill our way back to the divine world, I will give you a few continents to rule. Do you understand what I mean?" Yi Qinghan was silent for a while, then looked at Yi Sahan and said with a smile. When Yi Qinghan was in seclusion in Fire Dragon City for a few hundred years, Yi Sahan expressed her incomparable love for power. She followed Lei Jun and learned from Fire Dragon City. Later, Lei Jun gave the position of Fire Dragon City Lord to Yi Sahan, who was only at the first level of the God King realm. Yi Qinghan also knew that after this child came to the divine world, she was bullied everywhere. She liked to enjoy the power and glory that tens of thousands of people respected. Her cultivation speed in the past few hundred years had fallen. Therefore, Yi Qinghan specially instructed her now. Along the way, Yi Qinghan was very clear that in this world, power was everything. With power, you would have everything. The moment the Sovereign of Stars appeared, he immediately unified the immortal world. This was the best proof. Moreover, this secret realm of reincarnation was Lord Devour's territory. Although Lord Devour did not mind, Yi Sahan wanted to snatch power. The elders of Soul Eater City also did not dare to refuse. However, if they had objections because of this, it would not be good. To be honest, a secret realm the size of a palm, Yi Qinghan really did not want it. I understand, father. Yi Sahan nodded. Her attitude was much better than before. He was also very clear that Yi Qinghan was the absolute pillar of this family. They could not help Yi Qinghan with anything, but they could not be a burden. And Yu Shaoling and fireworks. Yi Qinghan turned his head to the other side, glancing at Yi Qingwu, Yinling and fireworks. He said indifferently, I have looked around this secret realm of reincarnation. There are many places that are considered fun. If you like to play, I don't care, but don't cause trouble. Of course, if someone causes trouble, just kill them. If there is anything, ask for Qingqing's opinion first. If anything happens, look for Mo Xiao Xiao. I will explain to her. You can stay in this secret realm temporarily. Believe me, this is only temporary. I promised you a lifetime of glory that year. This promise is still valid. Qing'an, go and do your own things. There is me, us sisters, and Sahan at home. Although we cannot help you with anything, we will not drag you down. Don't work too hard. Actually, living here or in the Fire Dragon continent is quite good. Yu Qingqing spoke. The others nodded. Even Yinling, who loved to cause trouble, looked at Yi Qinghan obediently. Yi Qinghan was completely relieved. He waved his hand to let Yi Sahan and Peach Blossom go back to rest. I will be leaving in 3 months. I have nothing left for you. Looking at the group of women, Yi Qinghan suddenly looked around seriously and said, Whoever wants a child, go back to your room, wash up, and wait for me. In 3 months, I will try to give each of you a child. It will also give you some hope in your hearts. Tui, Yinling spat, and was the first to run away. The women did not expect Yi Qinghan to say something so embarrassing in such a situation. All of them blushed, and even the exceptional Yu Qingcheng found it hard to endure the embarrassment. However, they all left quietly. As for whether they went back to take a bath, no one knew. Chapter 1061. Brother-in-law, can I have a child as well? Just as Yi Qinghan was grinding his fists and preparing to fight for the human race's reproduction, a fiery voice sounded in Yi Qinghan's mind. Following that, a blue figure flew into the yard. She had a head of blue curly hair, blue eyes, and a tall, voluptuous body. She made cherry blossoms exude a wild aura. If you want, you can find a man to give birth to. Yi Qinghan glanced at cherry blossoms and was tempted to say that in exasperation. When it came to women, Yi Qinghan was already very satisfied with having so many peerless women. To put it nicely, his present situation was a strategic shift. To put it bluntly, he had been chased out like a dog. Furthermore, with Xiao He on his plate, how could Yi Qinghan be in the mood for romance? He was about to leave. His future was bleak, and he did not know what dangers awaited him. Would he die? Yi Qinghan did not wish to harm cherry blossoms. Therefore, he said with a wry smile, Cherry blossoms, ignoring the reincarnation mystic realm, we have brought tens of thousands of warriors with us. There is no lack of good men among them. You can try choosing one. Men do not necessarily have to be the most outstanding. Just choose one that can accompany you for life. Marrying me is actually suffering. Just look at your sister. What kind of life would she lead with a man like me? She would wander from place to place, living in constant peril. No, you are wrong, brother-in-law. After hearing Yi Qinghan's heartfelt words, Cherry Blossom's expression did not change at all. On the contrary, the love in her sapphire eyes grew stronger. She shook her head and said, You also know that I'm the princess of Nanling City. Although this princess isn't worthy of the Ying family's attention. Although this highness isn't worth the Ying family's attention, it's still considered revered in the Nanling continent. If I want a man, what kind of man would I not have? What I needed was only my own spiritual sustenance. I just wanted to love and hate madly for the man I liked. When I thought of my own man, I would feel warmth in my heart and smile quietly. I like this feeling. I like thinking about you. I like looking at you. I like thinking about you. I really like you. Although this kind of life was difficult, it made me feel like a person. Besides, brother-in-law, you are so outstanding. Do you think I can find a man who is more outstanding than you? A man who can drive me crazy? I don't ask for much. I just want to have a place in your heart. Even being your lover is fine. If you don't agree to it, I won't commit suicide. However, after you leave and return, cherry blossoms will probably never see you again. How can a woman with a dead heart endure the onslaught of time? Yi Qinghan looked at the composed cherry blossoms and was momentarily at a loss for words. He never expected cherry blossoms to be so persistent. Back in Flame Dragon City, she said that she wanted to pursue him. He thought it was a joke. Sigh. Little Han, take her in. That lass, Cherry Blossoms, has fallen head over heels in love with you. If you don't want her, she will really die. At that moment, a voice transmission sounded lightly. It was filled with pleading. It was a voice transmission from Blue Rain. She had Cherry Blossoms by her side all the time. How could she not tell what she was thinking? The next second, Fireworks' voice transmission came. Brother Yi, take Cherry Blossoms. Sister Cherry Blossoms is quite pitiful. Little Han, bring Cherry Blossoms to me. I'll get Firework. The four of us will serve you well. We'll let you play with something new. It'll definitely feel good. Linger's voice transmission came as well. Qing'an, after our harem's discussion, we will make an exception to let Cherry Blossoms join us. However, if you were to come back with another woman, we will absolutely not allow you to join us. Do you understand? Finally, Yu Qingqing's voice transmission made the final decision. Yi Qinghan shrugged his shoulders helplessly. He sighed inwardly. The debt of love was getting heavier. He extended his hand to touch Cherry Blossom's blue wavy hair and said with a smile, "Return to the room and wait for me." Not having a woman was a very painful matter, but having too many women was a very troublesome matter. If this bunch of women were not so loyal, and if he was a heartless person, perhaps Yi Qinghan would not be placed in such a difficult position. Lord Devour had once said, "You have to give as much as you want." He had obtained a bunch of female confidants, but he had to carry a courage that was heavier than Qing Shan in the divine world. He had to proceed with great difficulty. That was because he had to give him a lifetime of glory. There were no fields that spoiled from plowing, only cows that died of exhaustion. Without a doubt, Yi Qinghan's body was stronger than the transcendent grade heaven annihilating Kuei Ox's body. However, 3 months later, even Yi Qinghan, who stood at the pinnacle of warriors, felt his legs turn to jelly. In consideration of the fact that Yi Qinghan would be away for a long time, every woman was determined to have a child. Although the marksmanship of a godly expert was very accurate, and the Yi family's marksmanship was extremely ferocious, having a child was still a matter of probability. Yi Qinghan did not dare use his divine perception and divine power to interfere with the control. It would be troublesome if he gave birth to a deformed child. Therefore, during the 3 months, Yi Qinghan could not remember how many times he had shivered or how many times his feet had trembled. There were even a few times when his eyes rolled back. However, Linger and the other women had all sorts of tricks up their sleeves. It made Yi Qinghan enjoy it to the point of going crazy. Once the 3 months were up, Lord Devour acted decisively and gave the order to set off. Everything that needed to be arranged had been settled. After settling Xiao Hei's matter, everyone could cultivate in peace. Brother, it's not that I want to criticize you, but your physique is lacking. I have a harem of 3,000 in Ethereal Palace. But how many do you have? Later, I'll teach you a few moves. Although Yi Qinghan tried his best to keep his expression the same as before, Jida, who was an experienced womanizer, could still see through it. He chuckled and sent a voice transmission to Yi Qinghan. Brother Jida, you are awesome. Yi Qinghan secretly gave Jida a thumbs up. The two of them followed Lord Devour to the Soul Emperor Pavilion. The Enchantress had already entered the Soul Emperor Pavilion to make arrangements. This time, she had left the Illusion Palace on the Samsara continent for everyone to cultivate. There were some changes to the restrictions in the Soul Emperor Pavilion, so the enchantress was very busy. In the past 3 months, I have found dozens of stunning women on the Samsara continent. There are also a few top-grade half-beast beauties. Later, I will give you a few to play with. Let's study them together. Jita glanced at Lord Devourer in front of him, and then turned to send a voice transmission to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. This Jita was really a pirate leader. No wonder he had not been on the Samsara Island for the past few months. It turned out that he had gone out to flirt with beauties. Looking at Lord Devourer awkwardly, he sent a voice transmission. Brother, there is only one word for awesome, right? You didn't use force, did you? Jita glared at him and said unhappily, nonsense. Do I, Jita, need to use force to flirt with beauties? I'm not bragging. I just don't show my strength. As long as I shake my strong body in front of the beauties, they will be like moths flying crazily toward me. That's true. Is this the legendary aura of a bastard? Wrong. The domineering aura of a king. The two of them happily bragged along the way. Jita seemed to be especially talkative today. After coming out of the pavilion, he had been chatting with Yi Qinghan nonstop. Yi Qinghan was also very cooperative. He chatted happily with Jita without looking back. He didn't even use his soul consciousness to check once. He knew that a group of people was watching them from behind. It wasn't that he had forgotten, but he didn't dare to turn around. He was afraid that if he turned around, he wouldn't be able to bear to leave. He was afraid that if he turned around, he would see a tearful face, a face that would make his heart ache. Chapter 1062. The Soul Emperor Pavilion turned into a stream of light and disappeared from everyone's sight in an instant, flying towards the endless void. After reaching a height of billions of miles, it spun crazily and finally disappeared into the cloud-like origin energy in the sky. In the boundless void, a 9-story pagoda appeared. It was covered in a golden light and moved as fast as lightning. It flew through the 2 space vortexes and soon flew out easily. It continued to move forward in the boundless void. The 9th floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Little Han, go and cultivate. This flight will take a long time. It will take at least 30 years to reach the edge of the demonic plane. Send me a message if you need anything. Lord Devourer said, then glanced at Jita and said faintly, Jita, you should also try your best to cultivate. Don't wallow in women all the time. Although it's hard to increase our competence, where there's a will, there's a way. If you want to go against the heaven, you have to work hard, right? Yes, Lord. Jita blushed. Lord Devourer teleported away. Jita smiled and didn't dare to drag Yi Qinghan down with him. He went back to his room to study the Beastman beauty in the reincarnation mystery land. Yao Ji, doesn't the Soul Emperor Pavilion need someone to control it? And what kind of energy does it use? Yi Qinghan picked up his cup of tea and asked curiously. He had never seen anyone controlling the Soul Emperor Pavilion. The dragon boats needed people to control them, and they needed divine power. This is one of the genius designs of the Soul Emperor. Do you remember the shield outside the Supreme Island? The Soul Emperor used the shield's principle to automatically absorb energy from heaven and earth. There's a super strong spirit gathering array inside. As for controlling it, it's even easier. The Soul Emperor brought us around, and we're familiar with it, so we don't need to control it. Of course, if we go to an unfamiliar place, we need to control it. Because Little Black was temporarily safe, Yao Ji's heart was also much more relaxed. She did not have to worry too much about the matters of cultivation. She knew that it was basically very difficult for her to take another step forward on the path of cultivation. There were also a few big shots and Little Han above her, so her mood was actually very relaxed. As she spoke, the seductiveness in her bones flowed out unconsciously, causing Yi Qinghan's heart to flutter. I'm going back to my room to cultivate. Do as you wish. Yi Qinghan hurriedly got up, not daring to continue looking at Yao Ji. Not long ago, he had pampered all of his wives, but not Yao Ji. If she were to make such a request, Yi Qinghan would definitely not be able to refuse. However, he would definitely cramp his thighs, calves, and middle thighs. Little Han? Seeing Yi Qinghan flee in panic under her fiery gaze, Yao Ji chuckled and shouted, "Don't you need me to help you? Enter the 5th level of soul stillness." Cough, cough. Another day, another day. Yi Qinghan, who was running away at lightning speed, trembled and almost fell to the ground. He didn't even turn his head back as he dashed towards the small hall where he lived. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Yi Qinghan first began to look at his body's condition. Originally, he didn't have this habit, but ever since he had merged with firework, lightning had appeared in his origin force and struck his soul from time to time. Every time Yi Qinghan calmed down, he would subconsciously look at his soul. This time, when he looked inside, his soul sea was still the same as before. Above his origin force, lightning continued to strike unceasingly. The lightning cycled between his soul sea and his origin force. The bridge that connected the two souls was still shining brightly, and the black line did not continue to spread. This strange soul, if it continues to evolve like this, I wonder what it will become in the end. Will it explode in the end? Yi Qinghan scratched his head and let out a deep sigh. Thunder and lightning continued to strike, and his soul ocean was constantly changing. If it eventually disappeared or exploded, that would be too much. After sighing for a while, Yi Qinghan could only ignore it and start to examine his own comprehension of the laws. During his 600 years of seclusion in Flame Dragon City, he had comprehended a high-grade spatial profound, spatial oppression. With the completion of the 4th high-grade profound, Yi Qinghan's comprehension of the laws had reached the realm of a 6th-grade war god. The pressure of a god-emperor had also become stronger. This time, he was prepared to continue comprehending the profound of space. The comprehension of the laws was the most important path. He had to continue comprehending 2 high-grade profound mysteries to reach the peak of the 7th grade, then comprehend the so-called Tao and break through to the venerable realm. Finally, he would comprehend the ultimate profound and become a true 9th grade war god. Spatial traversal? Spatial combination? How do I even begin to comprehend these 2 profound mysteries? What kind of profound is spatial traversal? Yi Qinghan stared blankly at the wall. The higher a warrior's realm, the more difficult it was to comprehend. This was because the fusion of high-grade profound mysteries depended on fusing 4 of the 5 basic profound mysteries in different sequences. The more one fused, the lower the probability of successful fusion, and the more difficult it would be. The cultivation of a warrior was already defying the natural order. The laws of heaven and earth would automatically reject you. Without heaven-defying luck and aptitude, how could they easily approve of you? Let's continue looking at the profound mysteries diagram. Yi Qinghan's mind stirred, and he directly entered the War Imperial Hall. He looked at the 2 profound mysteries diagram of spatial traversal and spatial combination and fell into deep thought. After looking at it for a while, Yi Qinghan finally stopped in front of the spatial traversal profound diagram. He circulated his divine power, and his eyes lit up. The scene in front of him began to change. The surrounding scenery began to turn into a sky filled with stars. From time to time, there would be meteors falling down, their brilliance dazzling. In the end, they would quietly fade away, vanishing into the endless void. Meteors? Or space-shattering saber flow? Yi Qinghan stared at the beautiful starry sky in a daze. He frowned slightly and just stood there, as if he had turned into a statue. Within the Soul Emperor Pavilion, Yao Ji was not surprised at all by Yi Qinghan's sudden disappearance. She knew that Yi Qinghan had gone to the War Imperial Hall. Hence, she was holding a book on restrictions and reading it with great interest. She had a foundation in the study of restrictions and had studied the restrictions of the Soul Emperor Pavilion for many years. Now that she saw the 2 books on restrictions that Yi Qinghan had given her, she would sigh with emotion every time she read them. Yi Qinghan didn't say where he had obtained these books on restrictions, and Yao Ji didn't ask either. However, she knew that this person's comprehension of restrictions had reached a terrifying height. He was several times stronger than the Soul Emperor. Just by looking at the restrictions of the War Imperial Hall, he could easily see some clues. Little Han has already been in the War Imperial Hall for a year. Why hasn't he come out yet? Could it be that he has comprehended something? This is bad. If he casually enters meditation for several thousand years, we won't be able to contact him. If we delay Xiao He, it will be troublesome. Suddenly, Yao Ji remembered something. She put away the books on restrictions and stood up worriedly. She was not in the War Imperial Hall. At this moment, Xiao Hei's soul had also fallen into a deep sleep. Yi Qinghan had entered meditation, so he wouldn't be able to detect any messages. Swish! As Yao Ji was worried and was about to find Lord Devour, a green figure suddenly appeared in the small hall. Yi Qinghan's eyes sparkled like stars. Yao Ji didn't dare to look at him directly. Yao Ji, do you have any way to let me stand outside the Soul Emperor Pavilion? Of course, you have to do it under the golden light. Otherwise, I will be chopped into pieces by the saber-shattering current. Yi Qinghan's face was so serious and even a little anxious as he spoke to Yao Ji. What? That's simple. With the protection of the Soul Emperor Pavilion's restrictions, they won't hurt you. Anyway, what do you want to do outside? Yao Ji was a little puzzled as she looked at Yi Qinghan. She didn't know why he had made such a strange request. Send me out. Now! Yi Qinghan didn't explain, but shouted seriously. Although Yao Ji was puzzled, she didn't ask. She controlled the restrictions and sent Yi Qinghan out. Then, she simulated the situation outside. However, she found that Yi Qinghan didn't do anything. He just stood on the Soul Emperor Pavilion and stared at the turbulence in space. It was as if he had become a statue. What? Yao Ji was even more puzzled, but her eyes brightened. Did Yi Qinghan comprehend something? Chapter 1063. Yi Qinghan stood quietly outside the Soul Emperor Pavilion, looking at the endless void, looking at the whistling spatial blade streams, looking at the constantly spinning spatial vortexes, looking at the countless planes that twinkled like stars. It was as if the time and space around him were frozen. Even his eyes didn't move a bit. Yao Ji looked at Yi Qinghan for a long time, feeling strange. Then, she sent a message to Lord Devour and Jida. The two also felt strange after watching for a while. Without a doubt, Yi Qinghan was cultivating. It was just that his cultivation method was a little strange. The #1 genius of the divine world. He's a genius indeed. His cultivation method is so strange. Jida sighed. This kid's innate talent was too abnormal. He had actually touched the mysteries in such a short time. It was really frustrating to compare oneself with others. The shorter a warrior's cultivation time, the easier it was for them to comprehend the principle. This was because their body's various functions were very active. After cultivating for a long time, their lifespan would reach hundreds of thousands of years. However, the body's functions would slowly weaken. Although the weakening was slow, it was still declining. The most important thing was that the more time passed, the more rigid one's thinking would be. Thus, young people were passionate and open-minded. It was easy for them to achieve great things. However, what made Yao Ji and the other two dumbfounded was that Yi Qinghan had been standing outside the Soul Emperor Pavilion for 20 years. To a warrior at Yao Ji's level, 20 years was just the blink of an eye. The last time Yi Qinghan comprehended the principle, he had spent 600 years. However, Yi Qinghan wasn't cultivating. He was standing still. His eyelids didn't even blink. His eyes didn't move. This was really strange. If Lord Devour hadn't used his divine consciousness and found that Yi Qinghan was normal, Yao Ji would have sent Yi Qinghan here. Thinking about Yi Qinghan's solemn expression when he sent her out, Yao Ji didn't dare to move. As a result, Yi Qinghan was like a javelin, standing outside the Soul Emperor Pavilion for another 7 years. Finally, he laughed out loud, scaring Yao Ji so much that she almost broke the teacup in her hand. Space Shuttle, Motherf ****. It's teleportation. High-level space mysteries. One is teleportation, and the other is will. What a huge loss. If I fuse with space travel and become a venerable one in the future, will the laws of heaven and earth still grant me teleportation? Yi Qinghan sat outside the Soul Emperor Pavilion. After 27 years, he had finally fused the space shuttle. However, he did not expect that according to his theoretical deduction, the fusion would be successful, and the space travel was actually teleportation. After sighing for a while, Yi Qinghan simply lay down on the outer shell of the Soul Emperor Pavilion made of some unknown material. He looked up at the endless void, his heart at peace. Since he had fused it, the high-level space would be a great achievement soon. Moreover, he estimated that it would take several hundred years to completely fuse it. He wasn't in a hurry. He used his divine sense to check his soul and found that there weren't many changes. He took out the Slaughter God Saber and checked Xiao Hei's situation. Xiao Hei's soul was still asleep. There were no accidents. Although he had lost a lot of energy, it wasn't a big problem. Yi Qinghan continued to look at the void. After flying in the Soul Emperor Pavilion for more than 20 years, they arrived at a place that Yi Qinghan didn't recognize at all. He looked to the left in shock, only to discover that there was a huge plain there. Moreover, they were still very far away from this huge plain. It would take at least 3 to 5 years to get close. One could imagine how big this plain was. Yao Ji, pull me in. Yi Qinghan looked for a while and took out his communication jade talisman to send a message. He had just sent the message when he saw a flash of white light. He appeared in the Soul Emperor Pavilion. The three of them were in the small hall. Yao Ji was the most anxious. She asked, "Little Han, how was it? Did you comprehend anything?" Yi Qinghan smiled and said, "I have comprehended the 5th occult." "The 5th? You said the 5th? Are you sure it's not the 4th? Yao Ji revealed a happy face. Lord Devourer and Jida revealed an incredulous expression. Jida asked in astonishment. Although he had guessed that Yi Qinghan might comprehend something, he didn't expect that he would actually succeed. This wasn't important. What was important was the 5th. Yi Qinghan didn't tell Lord Devourer and Jida that he had comprehended the space suppression because he had his own will. He didn't think it was something worth showing off. Yi Qinghan also didn't use his aura, so Jida and Lord Devourer didn't know that he had comprehended the space suppression occult in the Flame Dragon City. Seeing Yi Qinghan nod, Lord Devourer and Jida looked at each other and sighed. He had cultivated for less than 1,000 years, and he was about to reach the threshold of a 7th-grade war god. Disregarding Yi Qinghan's eternal space and his comprehensive competence, his comprehension speed of the principle was the fastest in the history of the divine world. The 5th occult, of course, referred to the 5th high-grade occult. The most difficult part of comprehending the occult was the entry level. Once he had comprehended it and found the right path, he could follow the vine to the melon, slowly deduce it, and finally succeed. The faster Yi Qinghan cultivated, the happier Lord Devourer and Jida would be. In fact, they didn't have much confidence in Mo Xiaoxiao because Mo Xiaoxiao had taken the unorthodox path. Not cultivating the principle wasn't the right path. Thus, Yi Qinghan was their only hope to return to the divine world. "Little Han, do you see that gigantic plain?" After a while, Lord Devourer pointed at the plain that Yi Qinghan had seen on the left. Yi Qinghan nodded. She continued, "That's the demon plain. As long as you get close to it, you can clearly feel the cold and evil aura of the demon. In 1 year, we'll reach the outer layer of countless material planes. At that time, you and Yao Ji will go in and check. If there are any demon creatures, kill them all. We'll wait outside." Yi Qinghan nodded and said, "That's the demon plane? Yeah, I'll go alone. Yao Ji will stay here to control the Soul Emperor Pavilion. All right, I won't cause the material plane to collapse, will I?" "It won't," Lord Devourer said affirmatively. "You've comprehended the eternal space, not the will of the principle of heaven and earth. Moreover, if you can't get in, the material plane will resist you. If you force your way in, the space will collapse. If there are any demon creatures, remember to fight them quickly. Don't let a group of devil monarchs chase you." "A group of devil monarchs? Can devil monarchs enter the material planes as they wish?" Yi Qinghan was a little skeptical. Lord Devourer shook his head and said, "The demon world is different from the divine world. They cultivate the dark principle. After becoming a devil monarch, they won't be granted the power of space, but the power of darkness. Thus, as long as the devil monarchs don't reveal their true bodies, they won't die. As long as their demon aura reaches half of the energy in this space, the material plane will become dark, and the devil monarchs can enter as they please. Of course, this is what the Soul Emperor has researched. You have to find out for yourself. Okay. Yi Qinghan's hand trembled, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The slaughter god's saber let out a light hum, and his eyes looked at the countless material planes projected on the walls. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. This time, he was going to start a massacre. Chapter 1064. Little Han, I probed this small material plane with my divine sense just now, and felt that there was a hint of demonic aura exuding from the outside of the plane. Go in and take a look, and remember the method I taught you. If you feel any resistance, don't force yourself. In the endless void, the Soul Emperor Pavilion was floating outside a material plane. Jida and Yao Ji were standing solemnly while Lord Devourer advised them seriously. Okay, I got it. A material plane can't have a monarch-level expert. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly, but a cold light shot out from his eyes. He didn't talk nonsense. He glanced at Yao Ji and shouted, "Send me out. Little Han, be careful." Yao Ji originally wanted to follow Yi Qinghan in, but Yi Qinghan firmly refused, so she didn't say more. Controlling the restriction, a white light flashed, and Yi Qinghan's figure disappeared from the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Is this the space turbulence? This aura feels so ancient and desolate. It was the first time Yi Qinghan stood in the void. He sensed and didn't find anything different. It was just a little cold, and there was no gravitational pull. His body felt like he was floating on the sea. Looking around, Yi Qinghan controlled his body and flew a few laps in the air. After he got used to the state of traveling in the void, his figure turned into a shadow, flying toward the cloud-like power source in front of him. Yes, Lord Devourer didn't lie to me. This is the power source. However, it feels a little different from the power source in my head. 1 hour later, his body reached the power source. Yi Qinghan reached out to touch it and found that his hand couldn't go in. The divine power in his hand burst out as he punched the power source. However, it bounced back, and the place where it was hit didn't have a trace of damage. Stepping on the power source, he looked at the endless void and the Soul Emperor Pavilion hovering in the void. Yi Qinghan smiled, feeling like he had become the Monkey King who was riding the clouds. He circled the origin energy a few times. Yi Qinghan released his divine sense and scanned his surroundings. It turned out that what Lord Devourer had sensed wasn't wrong. As soon as he released his soul consciousness, he felt a faint evil and cold aura. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He was very familiar with this feeling. It was the feeling of the demonic aura. Yi Qinghan continued to spread his divine sense. Not long after that, his eyes lit up. His body turned into a flash of lightning and darted towards the left. A while later, Yi Qinghan stood in a certain place. The origin energy here was relatively weak, revealing a dark cave entrance. Yi Qinghan probed the area with his soul again. Origin energy revolved around his body, before turning into a sharp sword and burrowing inside. Don't be nervous. There shouldn't be any devil monarchs in this material plane. Even if they received news that a life form from another plane had appeared, there wouldn't be a demon monarch descending. At most, it would be an Azura King or something like that. Little Han can kill them easily. In the Soul Emperor Pavilion, Lord Devourer looked at Jida and the Enchantress, who were a little nervous. Seeing the Enchantress holding Yi Qinghan's soul jade slip tightly, he couldn't help but feel funny. He teased, "Enchantress, don't crush the soul jade slip." A while ago, Lord Devourer had purposely made a soul jade slip for Yi Qinghan. That way, if Yi Qinghan died, people would know it immediately. Although this thing wasn't auspicious, Lord Devourer and Jida couldn't enter the material plane, and the Enchantress wasn't strong enough. If they didn't make this, no one would know if Yi Qinghan died. Hearing Lord Devourer's teasing words, the Enchantress loosened her grip on the jade slip. She rolled her eyes at Lord Devourer, looking at Jida charmingly. However, as she was Yi Qinghan's woman, She hurried to press down her evil thoughts. Swoosh! Yi Qinghan pierced through the weak point of the origin energy like a lightning strike. Since the origin energy was hovering around his body, and the origin energy in this area was thin, it was easy for him to pierce through it with his strong momentum. When he pierced through the origin energy and reached the sky of this material plane, Yi Qinghan was thrilled because he could feel the aura of the devil. Being careful, Yi Qinghan immediately released the eternal space. Then his soul consciousness spread out. This material plane was much smaller than the Fire Dragon continent. It was only 1/3 the size of the Fire Dragon continent. Yi Qinghan scanned the entire plane in just 1 second. Swoosh! After scanning, Yi Qinghan relaxed and blamed himself for making a fuss over nothing. How could such a small material plane have a peak expert? At the same time, Yi Qinghan was a little disappointed. There were too few creatures down there. Basically, they were all monsters that were similar to demonic beasts. There was no low-level devil, not even an Ashura. Swish! The slaughter god saber appeared in Yi Qinghan's hand. His body turned into a series of afterimages as he rushed down at lightning speed. SSSS. There was only one continent in this plane. When Yi Qinghan's domineering aura descended on this plane, all the demon world creatures sensed it. Although they didn't know what it was, they were all terrified. Xiaohei, devour them. Yi Qinghan used the power of space to suppress all the low-level devils and demonic beasts on the continent. After that, he shouted loudly and poured his god force into the slaughter god saber, summoning Xiaohei's soul spirit. Xiaohei had been in a deep slumber. Now that Yi Qinghan had summoned him, he transformed into a gust of wind and condensed Xiaohei's adorable and weird small beast form in the sky. Hearing Yi Qinghan's words, Xiaohei's eyes lit up as he flew down. The small beast transformed into a gust of wind in the sky and instantly enveloped all the demon world creatures below. I can definitely devour them. I definitely can. Yi Qinghan's eyes were burning as he stared at the gust of wind that Xiaohei had transformed into. Although Xiaohei had devoured Xiaohei, logically speaking, he should have the ability to devour demon world creatures. However, no one knew what would happen if he didn't try it. If he couldn't devour them, then Xiaohei would be finished. TSK. TSK. Under Yi Qinghan's hopeful gaze, the gust of wind that Xiaohei had transformed into swept across all the demon world creatures below. After that, the demon world creatures below were instantly turned into dust and swallowed by the gust of wind. It was exactly the same as how Xiaohei devoured the demon world creatures. Good. Yi Qinghan's eyes instantly lit up like two demonic suns. His heart that had been hanging in suspense was finally at ease. His entire being became spirited as he laughed and said, Xiaohei, devour them immediately. Devour all the demon world creatures in this plane. You must be fast. Ow, boss. This taste of devouring is even better than eating delicacies and spirit fruits. After devouring hundreds of demon world creatures, Xiaohei became spirited. Through Yi Qinghan's divine sense that had been locked onto him, he transmitted his voice. Yi Qinghan controlled the power of space, so that the area where Xiaohei was located would not be suppressed. He followed Xiaohei's figure and moved forward quickly. He directly allowed Xiaohei to sweep away all the demon world creatures in the vicinity, like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. In just a short period of time, Yi Qinghan brought Xiaohei and swept the entire plane. The gust of wind that Xiaohei had transformed into devoured the demon world creatures was too fast. In addition, Yi Qinghan's flying speed was also very fast. Of course, the most important thing was that this plane was too small. Boss, I feel that my soul has recovered some vitality. It's a pity that there are no more demon world creatures to continue devouring. When the last few hundred demon world creatures turned into dust and were devoured by Xiaohei, Xiaohei condensed his original appearance. He even pretended that he was not full and pouted his lips. Looking at Xiaohei's energetic appearance, Yi Qinghan was in a good mood. He laughed loudly and said, Haha, don't worry. I will bring you to sweep all the surrounding plains and let you devour to your heart's content. Stop talking. Enter the slaughter god blade and retreat. Chapter 1065. He's out. Xiao Han is out. In the Soul Emperor Pavilion, Yao Ji saw a green figure dashing out of the material plane like lightning. Her face was filled with joy like a little girl. Beside her, Jita heaved a sigh of relief. Lord Devour's face was expressionless, but a light flashed in his eyes. How is it, Xiao Han? As soon as Yi Qinghan got close to the Soul Emperor Pavilion, Yao Ji teleported him over and controlled the Soul Emperor Pavilion to fly away. Ha! Xiao He, come out! Yi Qinghan activated the Slaughter God Saber and made Xiao Hei's soul form appear in the air. When Xiao He appeared, Lord Devour and Yao Ji smiled happily. This was because Xiao He looked dispirited the last time he appeared. At this moment, there was a trace of intelligence in his eyes. Any, Sister Yao Ji, Big Brother Jida. Xiao He could not speak, but Lord Devour and the other two used their divine senses to check on him. Xiao He could use his divine sense to send messages. Coupled with his mischievous expression, he looked much better than before. Xiao He, Lord Devour softly called out, but he choked on his words. Tears flashed in his eyes, and his face was filled with doting and guilt. Xiao He, go back and rest first. Otherwise, your energy will be depleted very quickly. Yi Qing'an smiled and kept Xiao He in. Then he said to Lord Devour, there are demonic creatures in the material plane, but they are all low level. Although there are very few, there are some. Xiao He can devour them, and his speed is very fast. Although they had a rough idea of the answer, Yi Qinghan's words made everyone feel at ease. Although there were very few demonic creatures in the material plane, it was enough as long as there were them. Every large material plane had countless material planes nearby. If one was not enough, then he would kill 100. If 100 was not enough, then he would kill 100 million. Most importantly, there were no high-level demons in the material plane. Once he entered, he could easily suppress them and kill them all. There would be no survivors to report back to the demon world. Enchantress, speed up. Let's go to the nearest material plane as fast as possible. Before the demon realm finds out, we'll slaughter for a while. If we can help Xiao He evolve, that would be the best. A cold light shot out of Lord Shi's eyes. He swung his hand and shouted at Yao Ji. Yao Ji nodded her head. The Soul Emperor Pavilion's speed doubled again. Like a meteor, it streaked across the sky and floated into the distance. The Soul Emperor Pavilion flew at full speed, reaching a terrifying speed. Moreover, the nearest material plane wasn't too far away. It only took them a short day to arrive. Yi Qinghan raised the Slaughter God blade and rushed forward again. Xiao He searched for a weak point in space and directly pierced through it. He immediately used his spatial power to suppress it. Then he probed with his divine sense. After confirming that there was no danger, Xiao He attacked. It swept across the entire plane at lightning speed. Wherever Xiao Hei's gust of wind swept, not a single demon could survive. Not even a blade of grass could grow. Of course, in the material plane of the demon realm, there were no other species. All of them had been demonized by the demonic aura. Yi Qinghan and Xiao Hei's cooperation was getting better and better. The man and the beast didn't waste any words. After turning the huge plane into a land of death without any signs of life, they quickly retreated. After that, Yao Ji immediately brought Yi Qinghan back. The Soul Emperor Pavilion turned into a meteor and flew towards the next material plane without stopping. Half a year? In just a short half a year, under the suppression of Yi Qinghan's spatial power, the Soul Emperor Pavilion's abnormal flying speed, and Xiao Hei's increasingly terrifying devouring ability, Yi Qinghan and Xiao He swept through 90 material planes. They devoured more than 10 million low-level demons. All right, Yao Ji, don't go to the next material plane. Retreat. Circle around the demon realm and go to the other side. Don't go near any of the planes. After Yi Qinghan returned, Yao Ji prepared to fly to another material plane. Lord Devour suddenly spoke, his tone unquestionable. Although Yao Ji was a little suspicious, she didn't ask. The Soul Emperor Pavilion made a beautiful arc in the sky and flew in another direction. Lord, why? Yao Ji didn't ask, but Yi Qinghan was a little suspicious. Although Xiao He had devoured more than 10 million demons, they were all low-level demons. Their ranks were too low, and their life force was pitiful. Although Xiao He's body had grown a lot, and his eyes were more lively, he was still far from the level of the ghost dog, let alone evolving. Lord Devour glanced at Yi Qinghan, and then saw Jida also looking at him suspiciously. He asked casually, Jida, if it were you? In the material planes of the Misty Continent, within half a year, all the creatures in 90 planes suddenly disappeared. What would you do? Jida blinked and understood Lord Devour's meaning. He nodded and said, Of course, I would immediately send the law enforcement team to investigate. Oh, no, I would definitely send a venerable down to investigate. Although the races in the material planes are low level, they are the foundation of the divine world. Without the continuous ascension of warriors from the material planes, how could the divine world be so prosperous? That's right. Lord Devour then turned to Yi Qinghan and said, The Devil Monarch's intelligence isn't lower than ours. They wouldn't care if we killed a few dozen planes, and they probably wouldn't report it to their level. But in such a short time, 90 planes were hunted down at the same time. I'm afraid it has already attracted their attention. Since our identities haven't been exposed, we will sneak around for a while and confuse them for a while. When the storm is over, we will continue to hunt. Once we are discovered, we will talk about it. Yi Qinghan nodded and asked, How long do we need to sneak around for? Lord Devour pondered for a while and said, At least 100 years. All right, I'm going to cultivate. Yi Qinghan estimated that the energy Xiao He had devoured in half a year was enough for him to use for 400 to 500 years. He didn't ask more. After all, safety was the first priority. Once the storm was over, they would continue to hunt. Anyway, 100 years was a short time for him. It was the perfect time to fuse with the space-crossing mysterious mysteries. Not long after Yi Qinghan returned to his room, Yao Ji appeared. She understood that if Yi Qinghan wanted to fuse with the mysterious mysteries, he would need to enter the 5th level of soul quietude. It had been several hundred years since she had done that embarrassing thing with Yi Qinghan. Yao Ji was a little bit nervous, but she was also looking forward to it. What are you looking at? Sexy hussy, come here and lie on your stomach. Yi Qinghan looked at Yao Ji, who was bewildered in the middle of the room. Her graceful body shivered, her face blushing. Her eyes were like silk, but she didn't say anything. However, her charm was even stronger. He laughed and stood up, pointing at the jade bed and shouting, Little man, why are you so fierce? Aren't you afraid that I'll bite off your manhood when you're cultivating? Yao Ji glared at him with her almond-shaped eyes and said with hidden bitterness. However, she swayed her plump buttocks and slowly walked over. Ha, you're willing? Yi Qinghan pressed Yao Ji's delicate body onto the jade bed, causing her perky buttocks to rise high. Then, he violently tore her palace dress apart, revealing 2 beautiful pieces of flesh in the air. It was a dazzling sight, time as a butcher's knife. Looks like this saying isn't entirely true. At least this girl's things are still pink. Yi Qinghan swallowed his saliva. His robes were torn to shreds, and the black, shiny, and tall Yi family spears suddenly pierced through the air. The air in the room started to blow again. Yi Qinghan's dual cultivation journey had begun once again. Chapter 1066. 9 Hell's Demon World. This was what the divine world called the demon world. In fact, the people of the demon world called it the sacred world. The material plane was called the small sacred world. The demon world had 18 continents. Of course, there were 18 demon monarchs. In fact, there were far more than 18 demon monarchs. Only the strongest demon monarch had the right to become the master of the continent. Moreover, there was only one master on each continent. The other demon monarchs were all servants. Because the 18 demon monarchs were existences comparable to the ancestor demons. The demon world was even crueler than the divine world. The divine world had its iron laws, but the demon world was a place where the strong ruled, and the weak were prey to the strong. Low-level demons and countless species that had been demonized by demonic aura had no intelligence. They were completely like servants. Demon monarchs began to form simple intelligence, but they were only qualified to manage demons. As they continued to evolve into Asuras, their intelligence would increase, and they could also become middle-level managers. Above them were the Asura kings, who were as intelligent as the divine world lord. Each level managed the next, and the higher level completely controlled the life and death of the lower level. As for the demon monarchs, they were even more lofty existences. Even if they ordered billions of their subordinates to commit suicide, they would not dare to hesitate. South of the demon world, one of the 18 continents, the Obama continent, on the vast and boundless sea in the south, there was a majestic city. The city was mainly black, and the sky was not covered by demonic aura. Instead, it was clear. Releasing demonic aura was the lowest level demon technique. As the capital city of the Obama continent, how could there be low-level demons living here? The buildings in the city were incomparably tall. Each building was thousands of meters tall. Moreover, this Obama continent was more than 10 times the size of Flame Dragon City. This was the holy city of the Obama continent. Demons below the Asura King level did not have the right to live here. Whoosh! At this time, a huge black shadow shot in from outside the city. Its 100-meter-tall body was terrifying, and the invisible pressure it emitted made the countless Asura kings in the city feel a wave of fear. Greetings, Lord Aog. Countless Asura kings prostrated themselves on the ground, piously kneeling. In truth, the one they were kneeling to was also an Asura king, but he was the Asura king that their king favored the most. Even an ordinary demon monarch wouldn't dare to disrespect him. Lord Augie did not even look at the Asura king, who was kneeling on the ground as he rushed towards the largest castle in the city. Inside the castle, there was an unguarded front hall. Lord Augie's body wriggled as he walked into the front hall. His 100-meter-tall body shrunk rapidly until he became a 2-meter-tall, majestic man. The black scales on the surface of his body had also disappeared, and he was wearing a black robe. If it were not for the horn on his head, the faint red eyes, and the cold, evil aura that he exuded, outsiders would definitely think that he was a human cultivator. Without stopping at the front hall, Lord Aji quickly walked towards the middle hall. As soon as he entered the middle hall, his eyes revealed a fanatical look. His originally light red pupils instantly turned blood red. Under the black robe, a devil whip stood proudly. It could scare a cow to death. The scene in the middle hall was a little messy, incomparably lewd. On the soft carpet, countless fair-skinned women were surrounding a man who was even fairer than the women. They were doing things that were not suitable for children. If Yi Qinghan saw this, he would definitely think that it was a licentious old master from the immortal world who was having sex with his beautiful concubines. The men and women looked no different from the men and women of the immortal world. The scene was incomparably lewd and unbearable to look at. Lord Augie looked at the women on the floor who seemed to have no bones and their shining white bodies. He was very clear that these were not women from the immortal world, but a strange race from the material plane of the demon world. This was also one of the few races that would not become walking corpses after being demonized by the demonic aura. Instead, they possessed normal intelligence. Of course, this was also one of the races that the supreme beings of the demon world liked the most. This was because the women of this race were very tasty. They were born to be lascivious and would feel uncomfortable if they did not have sex for a day. Although the creatures of the demon world could automatically reproduce, they did not reject this kind of thing that was extremely pleasurable to the body and soul. For example, the man in front of him who was surrounded by women, the king of the Obama continent. Monarch Obama. Monarch Obama had obviously seen Lord Augie. He turned around and smiled at Augie. His smile actually contained the shyness of a human woman. His beautiful peach blossom eyes were watery and seductive. If it were not for the towering white whip below him, he would have been mistaken for a beautiful woman. After smiling at Augie, he did not say anything. Then, he grabbed a twisting snake woman beside him and opened his mouth to bite down on her soft breasts. In an instant, her snow-white breasts were drenched in blood. The snake woman's face was filled with pain, but she did not dare to make a sound. However, Monarch Obama did not stop there. His sharp teeth continued to chew off large chunks of flesh, which were dripping with blood, and he swallowed them whole. Finally, when the snake woman's towering breasts were completely flattened, she was thrown away by Obama. Although the rest of the snake women were afraid, they didn't dare to show too much. They continued to twist and turn on the side, breathing in and out, kissing each other, as if they didn't see the snake woman in the distance who was gradually losing her life. Obama flung his fine black hair. The blood at the corner of his mouth formed a stark contrast with his white face. It was a ghastly sight. He let out a somewhat feminine voice and smiled at Augie. Augie, you're here? Come. I missed you so much. These snake demons are so boring. Your whip is still the most powerful. Come on, let's go first. The demon whip on Lord Augie's lower body actually began to twist in his robe. However, after a moment, he suppressed the impulse in his heart and said to Obama, "Great King, something has happened. Countless people in the 90 small sacred realms under your command have been killed recently." Augie went to investigate, and I smelled the scent of humans. Humans? The somewhat effeminate sovereign Obama suddenly burst into laughter. After that, he grabbed one of the snake women and buried his head in it. He bit down on her large, white breasts. This time, he finished eating both breasts and only stopped when the bones inside were exposed. Then, he opened his mouth full of blood and laughed. Humans, I like humans. Let's go catch them. Augie, catch him. We'll have some fun with him. Use your mighty demon whip to whip him. With that, Sovereign Obama grabbed Augie, and the two slowly faded in the air, disappearing from the castle. Not long after, in the material plane where Yi Qinghan and Xiao He had massacred, Obama and Augie's figures suddenly appeared in the air. Obama closed his eyes and twitched his beautiful nose like a tiger squatting in a field of flowers and sniffing at a rose. His expression was incomparably intoxicated. After a while, Obama suddenly opened his eyes and laughed. It's a human. It's my favorite human scent. And it's a man. There's also a specter. Find him at all costs. Have the dark shadow race hide in all the small sacred realms. Have the wind demon race go into the turbulent space streams. We must find him. Find this man who has enchanted this king. Chapter 1067. Under Sovereign Obama's command, countless members of the Dark Knight clan teleported from the realm of demons to the hundreds of thousands of material planes under the Obama continent and hid there. The Dark Knight clan was not an original species of the realm of demons, but a type of creature that had been demonized. Because of their unique pulse of life, they were like inanimate objects and could easily evade any kind of detection. This included the dark power of the sovereign of demons and the spatial power of the sovereign of the realm of gods. At the same time, countless hair-thin members of the Wind Demon clan passed through the spatial rifts of the realm of demons and floated out of the spatial turbulence. They began to circle around the 90 slaughtered planes and investigate in all directions. The Wind Shadow clan was a very special creature. Their bodies could turn into a gust of wind and avoid the attacks of the spatial knife current. Although they could not travel fast in the air, they had the advantage in numbers. Under the orders of the Wind Demon clan's patriarch, all the spatial turbulence near the Obama continent's material planes were monitored. However, half a year later, the feedback was that they did not find any humans or strange creatures. At the same time, the material planes were not attacked. In a rage, Obama ordered the Wind Shadow clan to continue investigating. At the same time, he also began to investigate inside the realm of demons. In the end, he found that none of the material planes of the realm of demons were attacked. The human male who descended from the sky and killed 90 of his small sacred realms had completely disappeared, as if he had never appeared. Obama did not relax and continued to let Augie keep an eye on him. To the realm of demons, the realm of gods was only a low-level material plane. It would become a subsidiary material plane of the realm of demons sooner or later. It had always been the realm of demons that attacked the realm of gods. Countless years ago, the ancestral devil led the people of the realm of demons through the plain battlefield and almost conquered the realm of gods. Unfortunately, the despicable humans used a strange technique and suppressed them under the Nephi's abyss forever. Not long ago, the realm of demons organized another big attack and failed. Now, 90 small sacred realms were destroyed by a human from the realm of gods. This was a great humiliation. To Obama, the direct descendant of the ancestral devil, this was something intolerable. Therefore, he swore to capture this human male and make him howl in pain under Augie's whip. Therefore, after searching for more than 10 years, although he still could not find the figure of that human man, he still continued to let countless scouts continue to search. He believed that 90 planes wouldn't be enough to satisfy this man's appetite. He would definitely make another move. There was someone who cared about him so much. Moreover, it was a supreme existence of the demon realm. If Yi Qinghan knew about this, his hair would stand on end. Lord Devour's strategy was brilliant. The Soul Emperor Pavilion had taken a big detour and flown at full speed, which helped them avoid the detection of so many members of the Wind Demon Clan lurking in the chaotic space basin. By the time Bama sent out his scouts, the Soul Emperor Pavilion had already flown far away from Bama's material plane. Moreover, they were far away from the various material planes and liked to fly close to the spatial vortexes. The Demon Realm's territorial distinctions were very clear. If the Demon Realm creatures of this continent went to another continent, they would immediately be killed and devoured. Occasionally, wars would break out between continents, especially after the ancestral devil was suppressed in the God Realm. The Fiend Realm was in chaos for a long time, causing the Fiend Realm to suffer great losses. Therefore, during this period of time, the various sovereigns did not dare to openly cross over. Bama's strength was among the top of the 18 sovereigns. However, because he did not find Yi Qinghan, he did not dare to openly send countless members of the Wind Demon Clan to explore the chaotic space basin outside the material planes of the other sovereigns. Yi Qinghan, Lord Devour, and the other two did not know that they almost had a direct confrontation with a sovereign. At this moment, they were very relaxed. Lord Devour had been cultivating in seclusion, even though he knew that it would be extremely difficult for him to advance further. Jita also often cultivated in seclusion. However, after a few years, he would open his eyes gloomily and study the art of the human body with the beauties he brought from the reincarnation plane. At his realm, advancing further was as difficult as ascending to heaven. When he became a sovereign, his lifespan was almost exhausted. He also knew that if he advanced further, Lord Devour would give him the supreme treasure of the 9th floor. He would help him become an existence like the Star Sovereign, a 9th-grade supreme martial artist. He coveted that supreme treasure, but he knew that in this life, he would not have the chance to refine it. With his current low-grade 9 strength, if he refined it, he could only reach upper-grade 9. In the end, he would be slapped to death by Shinta. He glanced at the direction of Yi Qinghan's small hall and sighed. Comparisons were odious. Not only was this kid talented, but he was also very lucky. He had lived for millions of years and had countless peerless beauties, but he had never tasted the taste of the Demon Clan's women. The taste of the Demon Clan's women was very good. How could it be described as pleasurable? However, at this moment, Yi Qinghan was being enjoyed by the Demon Clan. He had been in seclusion for a long time, and it was a death seclusion. If he was not awakened by force, even if the Soul Emperor Pavilion collided with a material plane, he would not wake up, let alone the enchantress playing with his body. After a man and a woman of the Demon Clan had intercourse, he could enter the 5th layer of the soul for 5 years. Therefore, every 5 years, the enchantress would blush and stick out her tongue. making Yi Qinghan's penis harder and bigger. Then, she slowly sat on it, and her white and plump buttocks began to move. Without Yi Qinghan knowing, she raped him. Every time, the enchantress would be busy for 2 days. Finally, she helped Yi Qinghan clean up. Then, she sat in the room, controlling the Soul Emperor Pavilion to fly, while she began to learn her favorite restrictions. Time passed quietly, while Jida was worrying, and the enchantress was moaning. 100 years had passed. Lord Devour opened her eyes on time, and a trace of helplessness flashed in her eyes. 100 years was a short time for her. Even if she was in seclusion for thousands of years, she would not feel tired. She was just helpless. She had been in seclusion for 100 years, but there was no progress, not even a little bit. Jida stretched his body and walked out of the room to the hall. A trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. After 100 years of peace, he could finally be stimulated. The enchantress also put down the restrictions in her hands. She looked at Yi Qinghan, who was lying on the bed, sleeping for 100 years. She revealed a trace of helplessness. She knew that Yi Qinghan was rapidly fusing with the mysteries of space travel. If she did not interrupt him, perhaps in a few hundred years, the youngest 7th-grade war god in the divine world would be born. With such an interruption, Yi Qinghan's cultivation speed would definitely slow down. However, there was no other way. Saving Xiaohe was the main purpose of this trip. Cultivation could be taken slowly, and there was no need to rush. After the enchantress woke Yi Qinghan up, he smiled at her. Then he closed his eyes again and began to examine his soul. After 100 years, his soul had shrunk under the ceaseless lightning strikes. However, the strength of his soul had strangely increased. Other than that, there was still no change. Mother Astersker, if I continue to shrink like this, will my soul really explode? Yi Qinghan sighed helplessly. He stood up and walked out of the hall with the enchantress, ready to start a new round of devil hunting. Chapter 1068. The Samsara continent had been bustling recently. Of course, the Reincarnation Island was the only place that was bustling, as many small lives had been born recently. Yi Qinghan's marksmanship was very accurate. Other than Yi Qingwu and Yi Yaorao, who didn't want children, there was also Yao Ji who followed him out. In the end, all of his women became pregnant. The weakest among Yi Qinghan's women was Cherry Blossoms. Of course, Yi Qingyu and Yi Qingwu could not be compared to each other because they had refined divine crystals. The more powerful a woman was, the longer it took to conceive a child. Almost all of them had been pregnant for more than 100 years. Therefore, Xiaohei's child was the first to be born. According to Xiaohei, she would be called the Demon Devourer. The demon-devouring demon was a combination of the transcendent rank soul, devouring beast, and the dream demon dragon mount. The characteristics of 2 transcendent grade divine beasts actually appeared in a heaven-defying manner. Although he didn't know if he could awaken the soul devourer world and the dream demon dragon mount's innate divine abilities, it would definitely be extraordinary in the future. After being nurtured in Li Shui's stomach for 100 years, the little demon devourer broke through to the deity level not long after it was born. Although he had yet to transform, he could already speak. Later, Yu Qingcheng gave birth to a son, as did Yi Qingyu. Fireworks gave birth to a daughter, while Yin Ling gave birth to twins of a boy and a girl. Blue Rain and Cherry Blossoms each gave birth to 2 daughters. The group of little fellows were all about the same age. Because they had been gestating for a long time, after they were born, they easily broke through to the celestial deity realm in just a few years. The Demon Eater was the eldest, so she became the big sister. She led Yi Qinghan's group of children to fool around on Reincarnation Island. The Demon Devourer was Xiaohei's daughter. All the girls felt sorry for Xiaohei's fate and doted on her. Li Shishir and Mo Xiao. Thus, the Demon Eater became the little princess of Reincarnation Island, the little tyrant. At first, the Reincarnation Island was in a foul atmosphere. Then, the sea beasts in the Reincarnation Lake started to suffer. In the end, This group of lawless little tyrant ladies started to wreak havoc in the entire reincarnation mystic realm. The commanders of the three great continents of the secret land of reincarnation used to be from the secret land. However, after Lord Devour, Yi Qinghan, came here, the secret land of reincarnation's secret land's commanders were from the secret land. They were all replaced by the elders and elites of the Soul Eater City. After 100 years of management and rule, the secret realm of reincarnation became another Soul Eater manor. With absolute power and complete laws, no native would dare to challenge these rulers from other planes. After the demon devourer reached his teens, he began to lead Yi Qinghan's group of children to wreak havoc on the three continents. Today, he crippled a man, the next day, he castrated a group of people, and the day after that, he burned down half of the city. The thousands of cities in the three continents of the secret realm of reincarnation changed their expressions upon hearing that 7 children had brought along a strange small beast. The 7 men and 1 beast were all heavenly gods, but every time someone tried to attack them, they would suddenly die. When they went to the capital of the three continents to appeal, they received only one sentence. The 7 men and 1 beast came from the reincarnation island. As a result, no one dared to attack the 7 people and the beast anymore. The reincarnation island was a holy island. The reincarnation saintess lived there, as well as countless strong cultivators who were even stronger than their rulers. Yi Qingyu, Fireworks, and the others were worried that the children would turn bad if they continued like this. They wanted to capture them several times. However, Yu Qingqing only faintly smiled and didn't care. Every day, the things that these children did would be immediately reported to her. Although the children loved to cause trouble, they did not do anything truly evil. She remembered Yi Qinghan's words. Flowers in a greenhouse would never learn to be strong. Thus, as long as no one wanted to kill the children, even if they were beaten, she would not care. Mo Xiaoxiao also did not care about the children. With the 2 7th-grade war god elders of the Soul Eater City secretly protecting them, who could harm them. In the past 100 years, she had traveled almost everywhere in the secret realm of reincarnation. Sometimes she would stay in a strange place for a few years. Sometimes she would enter a dangerous place in the secret realm of reincarnation. However, after more than 100 years, she still could not decipher the secret of the secret realm of reincarnation. The 2 god emperors in the secret realm of reincarnation had reached the 10,000-year limit, but still died mysteriously. Mo Xiaoxiao watched them die. There was no warning, and they were not attacked. Suddenly, their life force began to drain rapidly. Their divine crystals exploded, and they died. Mo Xiaoxiao was not discouraged. She prepared to continue investigating the secret. She gave herself 100,000 years. If she still could not find anything, she would give up. She believed that if she could decipher the secret, her strength would improve by leaps and bounds. The realm of gods. More than 100 years had passed. The realm of gods did not change much. However, the Supreme Island was rebuilt with the help of countless sovereigns. The reconstruction this time was not as low-key and simple as before. Instead, it was built extravagantly. It was more luxurious than any city. The Supreme Island became prosperous again. Countless advanced war gods and great families moved in. The War God Pavilion's General Pavilion became the holy land of the war gods again. However, the war gods' faith in the War God Pavilion was not as fanatical as before. They even started to sneer and curse in secret. However, no one dared to show any doubts about the War God Pavilion or any disrespect to the Supreme Island. Because all the continents, all the major forces announced their submission to the Supreme Island. The Supreme Island became the ruler of the realm of gods. The chief pavilion master, Star Monarch Shintashion, became the king of the realm of gods. The king did not show himself. He had been resting in the eternal palace, recovering from the hidden injuries to his soul. No one knew how serious the injuries to his soul were. However, no one dared to try and jump out to challenge the authority of the Star Monarch. They knew that if anyone jumped out, the Star Monarch would definitely kill him with one slap. Li Tao was living a comfortable life on the Misty Continent. Giving in to Soul Eater City had affected his reputation to a certain extent. However, Soul Eater City, Fire Dragon City, and Dripping Spring City all expressed their submission on the surface. Lord Devourer and the few troublemakers left behind by Yi Qinghan had already submitted. How could the other Manor Lords dare to jump out? Therefore, Li Tao, a supremacy, became the first sovereign in the history of the realm of gods. Soul Eater City and Fire Dragon City were not suppressed by Li Tao. In fact, Li Tao basically did not care about the affairs of the two cities, let alone provoke supremacy Li Quan. Therefore, Emperor Yu and Thunder Emperor Li Quan had a rather comfortable life. After more than 100 years, the martial practitioners in Fire Dragon City, Dripping Spring Manor, and Soul Eater Manor had completely calmed down. However, Supremacy Li Quan and Emperor Lei Jinyu knew that this was only on the surface. Once the Star Monarch's injuries were completely healed, if Lord Devourer and Yi Qinghan had not returned, then their doomsday would be here. Lei Jinyu and Emperor Lei were both not afraid of death. They were prepared to perish together with Fire Dragon City and Soul Eater City. However, if they could avoid death, who would want to die? Apart from cultivating, the two of them would also stare at the sky in a daze, anticipating a 9-story pagoda shining with golden light to descend from the sky, anticipating those familiar faces to once again reveal brilliant smiles to them. Chapter 1069. This time, we'll choose the largest material plane. First, we'll explore the surrounding terrain. Then, we'll choose some large material planes and arrange our retreat route. Then, we'll start the massacre. Out of Yi Qinghan's expectation, Lord Devourer didn't ask him to take action after he appeared. Instead, he said faintly, "My lord, we don't have to be so careful. Even if we find a small material plane, only the Azura King will appear. Even if the Devil Monarch appears, he can turn invisible, so can I. Even if we can't defeat him, we can still escape, right? Once we get out of the space turbulence, with your support, the Devil Monarch won't be afraid." Yi Qinghan felt that Lord Devourer was making a mountain out of a molehill, so he frowned and said, based on his understanding of demons, they were derived from high-level demons. The death of some low-level demons wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. Just like the Monster the Arch didn't care about his low-level descendants. He would only care about the death of a level 5 demonic beast. Hide? Try to hide yourself, and see if I can detect you. Lord Devourer raised his eyebrows. Beside him, Jita was also interested. The Enchantress had seen it before, so she didn't care. Divine power shot out from Yi Qinghan's body, and he disappeared without a trace. Jita was surprised. He used his divine sense to scan and found that Yi Qinghan had disappeared. Then he searched the 9th floor, but he couldn't find anything. In the end, he had no choice but to release his power of space. In the end, he was able to easily find out what was going on. "Little Han, get rid of the hide." Lord Devourer shook his head and sighed. He used his will to detect easily. Looking at Yi Qinghan, he said, "Your hide is different from the Devil Monarch's invisibility. The Devil Monarch's body is completely merged with the aura of the demon. For example, the Devil Monarch on the Supreme Island. If he doesn't show his body, you won't be able to detect him. Although you can use the restriction to hide from the divine sense, your body is still in the space. The Devil Monarch will be affected by the law of heaven and earth. As for the dark power, it's on the same level as the space power. He can easily detect you." Yi Qinghan thought about it and agreed. He couldn't help but feel helpless. If the hide worked, he could even kill his way into the 9 Nether Demon world. He suddenly remembered something and said with anticipation, "Right, Lord, I got a spatial divine item in the sealed God Valley. It's really powerful. It can take me in. See if you can refine a door like the Carefree Pavilion. If you can, I won. I can kill my way to the 9 Demon world." Lord Devourer and Lord knew that Yi Qinghan had a spatial divine item, but Yi didn't know. Had. Yi got. Right. Lord. Yi Qian, Yi said. "Now plain. Devoth Lord of, and Lord and all God. Get, God, ye of ye God he and want to hide, his own, of God, ye God. He was trying to hide some secrets that belonged to him. Lord Devour stood in the War Imperial Hall and didn't say anything. He just looked at the restrictions here and there. After a while, he asked Yi Qinghan to open all the restrictions in this hall. After all the restrictions were opened, the heaven and earth essence chi in the hall instantly became extremely rich. Little Han, this spatial god tool was given to you by the Battle Emperor, right? After a while, Lord Devour suddenly opened his mouth and said something that surprised Yi Qinghan a lot. The identity of the War Emperor was extremely mysterious. There was no information about him in the God realm. Even Jita had heard of a rumor. Lord Devour had never been to the Investiture Valley, but at first glance, he could tell that the Battle Emperor had given this to him. There's no need to be surprised. I also know that Battle Emperor is the master of Sealed God Valley. Lord Devour smiled faintly. Looking at Yi Qinghan's face, she confirmed his thought. She sighed deeply. I can't refine this spatial divine treasure. Even the Soul Emperor and the Wind Moon Monarch can't do it. No one would be able to refine something that belongs to the number one master of restrictions in the divine realm. Jita's eyes lit up, and he quickly asked, Battle Emperor? Lord, does this person really exist? Legend has it that he is the most mysterious peak expert in the God of War Pavilion. Of course, Yi Qinghan knew that the Battle Emperor existed. Moreover, there was a remnant of his soul in the divine crystal. However, he was extremely curious about the Battle Emperor, so he looked at Lord Devour with great interest. Lord Devour nodded and said, Of course he exists. Others might not know, but the Soul Emperor and I know it the best. Because the Soul Emperor obtained the Battle Emperor's restriction notes, he embarked on the path of refining supreme weapons. The Battle Emperor is the number one master of restrictions in the God realm. Until now, no one has surpassed him. You know about the Eternal Palace, right? It was refined by him. Also, the Shield of Supreme Island and the restriction that suppresses the demonic ancestor demons were all built by him. What? Yi Qinghan and Jita cried out at the same time. The Eternal Palace was not shocking, but the restriction that suppresses the demonic ancestor demons was really awesome. However, the two thought about it. Besides the legendary number one master of restrictions, who else could suppress the three demonic ancestor demons? That's not right. The battle simulation in the God of War Pavilion didn't mention the Battle Emperor's name among the three pavilion masters. Yi Qinghan sighed and suddenly asked in surprise. Jito also nodded. He had also seen the battle simulation in the God of War Pavilion. The battle between the three pavilion masters and the three demonic ancestor demons did not mention the Battle Emperor's name. Yi Qinghan was even more certain because he had seen the Battle Emperor's appearance. He was definitely not one of the three pavilion masters. Lord Devour pursed his lips and said, It was during the last dimensional war. I don't have any information about it. No one knows what happened at that time. I'm afraid Kid was still in the dimensional war at that time, right? It's normal that he doesn't know about the Nepha's abyss. Oh. Yi Qinghan fell silent. It seemed like he would only know when his nomological laws broke through to the 9th grade, and he met the Battle Emperor. Lord Devour did not speak anymore. Instead, he let the little demon Solid control the Soul Emperor Pavilion and began to fly rapidly in the vicinity. It even flew a long distance away from the demon realm in the opposite direction, preparing to arrange an escape route. Oh! Is that the black hole that can devour everything? After a month, Yi Qinghan's pupils dilated because he saw a huge black hole in front of him. It was the size of a small material plane, and it was so dark that it made people feel suffocated. There was a strong suction force inside. From far away, the space-shattering saber currents blew over and were instantly devoured. Lord Devour nodded and said solemnly, Yes, this is the space black hole. Don't get close to it. Otherwise, you will be sucked in and transported to any place in the void. If you are transported to the edge of the void, you won't be able to find a plane. Even a ninth-grade supreme being will be slowly consumed by the space-shattering saber currents. Eventually, they will die. Yi Qinghan and Ji decide. This was not a joke. Even if they were not transported to the edge of the void and transported to a faraway plane, they might not even be able to return to the divine realm in this lifetime. Moreover, other planes definitely had ninth-grade experts and ninth-grade supreme martial artist experts as well. If they encountered experts from other planes, the final outcome would be death. Lord Devour carefully observed. After a long time, he decisively ordered, "It's about time. Little demon Sala, go back. Go to the number 1 plane that I told you about, and prepare to kill." Chapter 1070. The Soul Emperor Pavilion turned into a meteor streaking across the vast sky. After half an hour, it arrived at the number 1 material plane that Lord Devour had chosen. This time, Lord Devour had chosen the 50 largest material planes that weren't too far away from each other. He had also decided on the hunting order. Although these were the largest material planes, Jida and Lord Devour couldn't enter them. However, Lord Devour allowed Jida to accompany Yi Qinghan out of the Soul Emperor Pavilion. "Big brother Jida, I'm going in." Yi Qinghan held the slaughter god saber, his eyes filled with murderous intent. He nodded at Jida and entered the thin space, disappearing into the cloud-like origin energy. As soon as he entered the material plane, Yi Qinghan didn't release his space power immediately. Instead, he chose to hide and use his space power to suppress it. Finally, he used his divine consciousness to explore. Although he didn't feel any danger, he still decided to follow Lord Devour's instructions. This material plane was bigger than the Flame Dragon continent by more than 2 times. There were hundreds of millions of demonic creatures below. Of course, they were all low-level demonic creatures. Demonic creatures love to kill and devour each other to evolve. Hence, a material plane with hundreds of millions of demonic creatures was considered a very large material plane. "Xiaohei, your food is here. Devour it." Yi Qinghan's divine power increased, and Xiaohei's phantom quietly appeared in the air. When he heard Yi Qinghan's words, his eyes brightened, and he turned into a gust of wind that swept down. Although there was an Azura in this material plane, Yi Qinghan wasn't worried at all. He quickly followed Xiaohei and watched as he swept across the material plane like a gust of wind, devouring countless demonic creatures. Xiaohei's speed was getting faster and faster. It didn't take long for them to finish devouring all the demonic creatures in the entire plane. Even the Azura didn't last more than a second. "Xiaohei, that's it. Retreat!" Yi Qinghan put Xiaohei away and shot toward the space like a flying dragon. He passed through the weak point of the space and appeared in the space turbulence. "Big brother kid, the next plane?" Hijita nodded and didn't speak any nonsense. The two of them flew towards the Soul Emperor Pavilion like lightning. Then, the Soul Emperor Pavilion turned into a meteor and flew towards the next plane. 3 months later, Demon Realm, Obama Continent. Augie's body flew toward the largest castle in the city like lightning, his face filled with excitement and ecstasy. Ignoring the Azura King who was respectfully bowing to him in the city, Augie didn't even have the time to shrink his body as he walked towards the central hall. The central hall was as promiscuous as ever. This time, Augie did not look at the countless lamia on the ground. Instead, he stared at the man who was even more seductive than the lamia, the king of the Obama continent. He quickly said, "King, there's news. That human from the immortal realm has made his move." The fish took the bait? "Where is it?" Monarch Bama covered his mouth and giggled. His pretty face moved Augie's heart. However, Augie didn't dare to act recklessly at this moment. He was well aware of Obama Continent's hatred for humans. He quickly said, "The North, Sovereign Ao Gu's subordinate small sacred world." However, Lord Ao Gu doesn't seem to care about this matter, and his subordinates aren't too enthusiastic about it either. Now a total of 43 small sacred worlds have been massacred. According to our spies, I'm afraid this matter hasn't reached Lord Aogu's ears yet. Aogu, this unromantic man. A trace of anger appeared on Obama Continent's seductive face. He stretched out a beautiful hand and grabbed the hair of a lamia who was swallowing and spitting on his body. He ruthlessly threw the hair at the wall. Clapping his hands, he leisurely stood up and elegantly put on a pink robe. Only then did he say to Augie, "Let's go and see that cruel man Aogu. If he doesn't agree with me taking action, I won't be able to. You know, the sacred world has been too chaotic recently. The ancestral demons will be sad if they find out." Augieland was located in the northernmost part of the Fiend Realm. But for Obama Continent, it only took him half an hour to fly over. When Obama Continent and Augie condensed their true forms from the black mist, the entire city of Augieland was on high alert. The entire city of Augilou was on high alert. Countless Azura kings flew out of the castle and glared at the two of them. A beautiful woman walked out of the castle in the center, looking no different from a human woman. She looked at the tall Azura king standing above the city and the pink, seductive Obama Continent. She frowned slightly and said softly, "Sovereign Obama Continent, please leave. Augieland does not welcome you." "Kiki, Barbara, I'm not interested in you. Let your man come out. This king has business with him." Obama Continent gently stroked his hair and chuckled. From time to time, he would throw flirtatious glances at the nearby Azura kings. He looked extremely exquisite. The woman called Barbara smiled coldly and said unhappily, "Sovereign Obama Continent, I've already said that Augieland does not welcome you. The king will not see you. If you don't leave, I will take it as a provocation to Augieland." "Kiki, provocation? If it weren't for the fact that there have been so many killings in the sacred world recently, I would definitely kill you, you hateful woman. If it weren't for you, Aogu would definitely fall in love with this king." Obama stared hatefully at Barbara, then actually opened his throat and let out a shrill cry. "Aogu, you heartless man, get out here for this king, or I'll tear down your broken city." The tens of thousands of Azura kings in the city were embarrassed. Sovereign Obama Continent's reputation as a pervert was well known in the Fiend Realm, but no one expected him to be so reckless. He did not look like one of the 18 great supremes of the Fiend Realm. Humph! Barbara's expression was gloomy as she prepared to attack. She was also a demon monarch. Although she was much weaker than Obama Continent, she wasn't the only demon monarch in Augieland. Moreover, her husband Sovereign Aogu's strength ranking was much higher than Obama Continent's. But at this time, a cold snort sounded out. She could only helplessly withdraw her power of darkness. "Obama Continent, do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" Following that, an extremely domineering voice rang out. All of the Azura kings in the city were shocked, and their fighting spirit soared. At this moment, even if the owner of this voice ordered them to kill Obama, they wouldn't hesitate in the slightest. "Kiki, Aogu, your voice is still so charming. I'm afraid this king will be suffering from insomnia again. So hateful. How can you bewitch my heart like this?" Obama Continent's sweet voice sounded out, causing the surrounding Azura kings and Barbara to break out in a cold sweat. This Obama Continent was even more feminine than a woman, able to attack and resist at the same time. He was truly a freak of the Fiend Realm. "If you spout any more nonsense, do you believe I won't tear you apart?" The overbearing voice continued, and it was even colder than before. Obama Continent didn't dare to continue acting coquettishly. He sighed slightly. "Sigh, you unromantic man. Don't you know that dozens of people in your small sacred realm have been slaughtered recently? Let me tell you a secret. The one who slaughtered our people is a human man from the divine realm. Do you want me to help you kill him? How dare you arrange a spy in my place? Do you believe I won't kill you? Get out of Augieland right now, or I will kill you." The overbearing man's words came again, and the murderous intent in them was extremely obvious. All of Augieland suddenly darkened at this moment, and dark clouds loomed over the city, making people's hearts tremble. Good intentions don't get rewarded. I'm just reminding you that he's a human man from the divine realm. If the ancestral fiends knew that our children were killed by humans, how sad would they be? Augie, let's go. This heartless man has broken my heart. Obama Continent twisted his body, his face full of resentment. He pulled Augie and turned into a black mist, disappearing from the city. As soon as Obama Continent left, the overbearing voice sounded again. Barbara, you'll be responsible for this matter. Make this divine realm man stay in the sacred realm forever. Chapter 1071. Obama City. Obama and Augie's figures condensed in the middle of the city, causing the Azura kings to hastily pay their respects. Bama didn't enter the castle and instead pondered in the air. After a while, he suddenly smiled sinisterly and waved his hand at Augie. Have the children of the Windshadow clan immediately go to the space turbulence outside the small sacred world where Augie met with an accident. I need to know the location of that human male immediately. Augie's brow rose slightly, but he didn't say anything and immediately sent word to the Windshadow clan's patriarch. The Windshadow clan's patriarch didn't dare to speak any nonsense and immediately carried out Obama's orders. Not long after, countless Windshadow clansmen, like bees, flew towards the space turbulence near the plains that Yi Qinghan had hunted. King, didn't you say that if Sir Ao Gu didn't agree to us interfering, we would, after all of this was done and the Windshadow clansmen had set off? Augie cautiously asked Obama. Although he was Obama's male pet, he had always been very smart and didn't act arrogantly. Obama smiled sinisterly and said, "Jia, we won't act. I'll just go take a look, right? I'm guessing that the proud Ao Gu won't act himself. If that slut Barbara takes action, I'll take advantage of her and then wait for that human male to escape from Ao Gu's forces before I catch him." Jia, Augie, don't you think this king is very smart? Augie's eyes immediately flashed with fanatical worship as he said with great affection, "King, your wisdom is as deep as the waters of Daming Lake. You are the most outstanding child of the demon ancestor. Ao Gu will definitely regret this." Jia, it's still my Augie who knows how to speak. This time, this king will capture that hateful man and give him to you, so that his chrysanthemum will bloom for you. Jia. Obama covered his mouth and chuckled, his eyes like silk, giving off a boundless amorous feeling. Not long after, in just half an hour, news came from the Windshadow clan. When Obama heard this, his spirit shook and his pair of peach blossom eyes brightened as he smiled and said, "There's a big fish. There's also a divine world monarch. There was also a strange pagoda. TSK, if Babla went there, she would definitely be finished. Otoro Dilla, you two bastards, get out here. Interesting. Xiao." Following Obama's shout, two identical black shadows quickly condensed in the air. They were two men who looked like ordinary humans, but they had two demon horns on their heads. His appearance was also sinister and full of baleful aura. "King, Ordora is at your command." As soon as the two men appeared in the air, the Azura king below bowed once more, and even Augie bowed slightly. These were the two sovereigns under Obama's command. Their strength was much weaker than Obama's, but they were supreme experts who had been bestowed the power of darkness by the natural laws. Augie, let's go. It's been a long time since I've encountered something so fun. Otora, Adala, follow me. Let's go catch some people. La la la. Two men from the divine world and a strange pagoda. As Obama giggled, the four of them turned into a gust of black wind and disappeared from the sky above Obama City. It's the 49th plane. Xiaohei, hurry up. After we finish this plane, we'll go to the next one. Then we'll run. Ha, you're satisfied this time, aren't you? In a plane 4 to 5 times bigger than the Fire Dragon continent. After Yi Qinghan confirmed that there was no danger, he immediately asked Xiaohei to act. Looking at Xiaohei, his eyes were filled with joy. For half a year, under Lord Devour's arrangement, Yi Qinghan had crazily hunted the creatures of the demon world. Xiaohei had devoured at least 10 billion creatures of the demon world. Although these creatures were the lowest level, with only a few Azuras, he had the advantage in quantity. Xiao Hei's soul was becoming more and more stable, and his body was much bigger than that of a dog. His face could even show different expressions, and his eyes looked so lively. Yi Qinghan had a premonition that if he could finish this hunt and hide for a while longer, he would hunt crazily like this again. At that time, Xiao Hei would evolve, which meant that his soul would take shape. After that, he wouldn't need to devour anymore. Instead, he would automatically absorb earth and heaven energy. At that time, he could return to the capital and cultivate in peace. "Haha, boss, watch me." Xiao Hei made a face at Yi Qinghan in the sky. Then, he turned into a gust of wind that was tens of thousands of meters wide, sweeping down like the autumn wind sweeping the fallen leaves. His speed could reach tens of thousands of miles in 1 second. In just a blink of an eye, millions of creatures of the demon world had been devoured. If this ability reached the demon world, the demon monarchs would be so scared that they would pee their pants. Although they didn't pee in just a short while, half of the creatures of the demon world had been devoured by Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei was like a demon god, descending, unstoppable. All of a sudden, Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched. He had a bad premonition in his heart. His expression changed as he shouted, "Xiao Hei, come back!" At the same time, he used his spatial ability and formed a huge palm. Then he slammed it down towards the sky. Just as the huge palm shot out, Xiao Hei had already returned to the slaughter god saber. Yi Qinghan immediately concealed himself, and his body transformed into a swimming dragon, shooting violently towards the sky. The huge palm slammed into the sky, shattering the image that had just formed in the sky. Then, it smashed into the ground with a loud bang, causing the entire plane to tremble. Countless low-grade creatures of the demon world, although they didn't have any intelligence, were extremely terrified as they ran all over the plane. A huge palm print that was tens of thousands of meters wide appeared on the ground. "It's actually a human monarch? That saber?" The image that was shattered in the sky condensed again. It was the extremely beautiful Barbara and an Azura king. Originally, Barbara only wanted to send the Azura king beside her to take a look. In the end, she decided to do it herself. She had never seen a human before, and she was very curious about them. From the start, she didn't intend to reveal her original body. She only wanted to use the power of darkness to form a phantom image and come over to take a look. She didn't expect that Yi Qinghan would sense it immediately and shatter it. She was shocked and immediately brought the Azura king to descend. At the same time, the power of darkness quickly swept towards Yi Qinghan. Coincidentally, she saw Yi Qinghan holding the slaughter god saber and flying towards the weakest part of the space. "A human monarch? Your Majesty, should we report this to the king?" The Azura king beside her immediately said, "No need. Wait here. I will go and capture him." Barbara smiled enchantingly as she looked at the Azura king beside her. At the same time, Barbara's figure quickly rushed in the direction that Yi Qinghan disappeared. Her speed was twice as fast as Yi Qinghan's. Her eyes were filled with passion. It wasn't because this was the first time she saw a human male. It was because she saw that saber, the demon world's sacred weapon, the supreme slaughter god saber. Barbara believed that as long as she obtained this saber, she would become the next ancestor of the demon world. Unifying the demon world would be a piece of cake. Chapter 1072. Brother Jita, there's a devil monarch. As soon as Yi Qinghan rushed out, he immediately sent a message to Jita, who was guarding outside. At the same time, he sent a message to Lord Devour. "Kill him." Jita did not say anything and immediately released his space power. At the same time, Lord Devour's figure appeared in the sky. He teleported to Yi Qinghan's side. The three of them gathered their space power, ready to kill the devil monarch as soon as it appeared. The demon territory was the devil's territory. Even the endless void was filled with thick devil aura. In this place, the Soul Emperor Pavilion speed could not be compared to a devil monarch's. Thus, Lord Devour had told them that once a devil monarch came, the three of them would attack immediately. Even if they could not kill it, they had to injure it severely. Then, they would retreat immediately. In the distance, the Soul Emperor Pavilion also flew at high speed. However, it was circling around this material plane, waiting for the three to finish their attack before it flew away. Swish! A faint black wind blew out from the space crack. However, the three of them did not make a move. They just used their space power to freeze the surrounding space. Until the black wind completely floated out of the space crack, Lord Devour's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He shouted, "Attack!" Swish! Kid held a long spear in his hand, and countless spatial powers turned into giant dragons that roared towards the black wind. The giant dragons caused the space around them to tremble. It should be known that the space in the endless void was 100 times more stable than the divine world. It was obvious that Jido was going all out to kill the enemy in one move. Yi Qinghan's attack wasn't fanciful at all. Instead, he condensed all of his spatial energy into a huge palm and slapped it towards the black wind. The huge palm whistled through the air. Although it didn't cause any spatial fluctuations, it still caused the space in its path to become blurry. It was the first time that Yi Qinghan had seen Lord Devour's space power use. Lord Devour had condensed space power into countless sword energies. They were like thousands of small swords that shot in the air. The momentum was huge, and it was much more frightening than Jida's. Boom! The three of them attacked indiscriminately. More than half of them hit the origin power of the material plane. Instantly, the entire plane shook a little. One could imagine how powerful their attacks were. Damn it, there are actually 3 human overlords. A weak female voice rang out. The black breeze in the air, under the combined attack of the 3 people, was instantly shattered. Barbara did not expect there to be 3 human sovereigns. Fortunately, the demon sovereigns preferred not to reveal their true forms when the battle was unclear. Otherwise, her original body would have been torn apart in an instant, and she wouldn't even have had the chance to escape. Under the combined attack of the 3 sovereigns, even Demon Monarch Barbara, who possessed an immortal body, was heavily injured. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately commanded the few black winds to flee towards the weak point in the material plane. The Devil Monarch's body could be broken down into demonic aura. As long as the demonic aura was not completely destroyed, the main body would not die. This was the benefit of cultivating the law of darkness. Of course, if that attack had been unleashed by the Astral Monarch, Barbara would not have had any hope of escaping. She would have been instantly shattered, seeing that the nether wind was about to enter the weak point in the space. How could Yi Qinghan let go of such a good opportunity? With a wave of the Slaughter God Blade, Xiaohe whizzed out and enveloped the remaining half of the black winds. Yi Qinghan did not dare to let Xiaohe devour a demon monarch at its peak. However, Xiaohe was even more ferocious than a dog now. It should not be a problem for him to devour the energy of a severely injured demon monarch, right? The answer was yes. The nether wind that Xiaohe had transformed into started fighting with the remaining half of the black winds. In just a short 3 seconds, Xiaohe's nether wind had completely devoured the black winds. At that moment, the nether wind that Xiaohe had transformed into actually shone brightly with a green light. Xiaohe's ecstatic voice could be heard. Boss, I feel that I am on the verge of evolving. This energy is so pure, and it tastes so good. On the verge of evolving? Yi Qinghan's eyes instantly lit up, and Kid, who was beside him, jumped in fright. Then, something that shocked Kid happened. Yi Qinghan actually dashed toward the weak spot in the space at lightning speed. Little Han, come back! Lord Devour's expression changed drastically as he shouted in a deep voice. However, the message that Yi Qinghan sent back made Lord Devour's eyes light up, and he did not obstruct Yi Qinghan anymore. Xiaohe is on the verge of evolving? Lord Devour and Kid were delighted. They were not afraid that the severely injured demon monarch would harm Yi Qinghan, but they were worried that an even more powerful demon monarch would descend. Then, it would be really dangerous. However, since Xiaohe was on the verge of evolving, it was worth the gamble. The light in Yi Qinghan's eyes could melt godly iron, and his speed had reached the limit. He chased after Barbara's tail and entered the material plane. "Your Majesty? What's wrong?" Barbara's figure had just condensed in the material plane, and her face was pale. The Azura King beside her hurriedly asked in shock. However, before he could finish speaking, the Azura King's expression changed drastically. As Barbara was too weak, although her reaction was slightly slower, she immediately turned into a black wind and fled in all directions. "Die! Xiao He has devoured them." Yi Qinghan stood tall in the sky and did not hide. It was as if a god had descended from the heavens. The vast power of space directly pressed down, causing the black wind's escaping speed to become extremely slow. The Azura King could not move at all. "Kakadai, this Lord Xiao He has devoured all of you. You should feel honored." Xiao He turned into an angry dragon from the slaughter god's saber and roared. At this moment, he could actually speak the human language. It was obvious that after devouring a portion of Barbara's energy, his soul form was close to stabilizing. Xiao He turned into an earth-shattering gust of wind that was like a dark cloud pressing down, almost covering half of the plane. In an instant, it covered Barbara, the Azura King, and countless other demonic creatures. "Xiao He, don't devour too much. It's fine as long as you can evolve." Although Yi Qinghan felt that it was a gamble, he did not lose his rationality. He shouted at Xiao He. Xiao He's gust of wind and Barbara's black wind entangled. At the same time, they began to corrode the Azura King. The speed of corrosion was dozens of times faster than that dog. In the blink of an eye, the Azura King turned into pure energy and was devoured by Xiao He. As for those low-level demonic creatures, they disappeared without a trace like water droplets on a raging inferno. Although Barbara was severely injured, and Xiao He had devoured a small portion of her power of darkness, a centipede was still alive. However, a centipede would not fall down even if it died. Moreover, it was a devil monarch recognized by the laws of heaven and earth. The gust of wind and black wind entangled. The black wind contained Barbara's main body, so it was very difficult to devour. However, it was clear that Xiao He's gust of wind had the upper hand and started to devour it bit by bit. However, based on this speed, it would probably take at least an hour to completely devour it. After 1/3 of the time it took for a Joss stick to burn, Xiao He had devoured 1/3 of Barbara's black wind. He suddenly retreated back into the slaughter god saber and laughed. "Boss, I have enough energy. Xiao He, am about to evolve. I think I will need to sleep for a period of time. Let's retreat first." You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.